Yeah, it's a callback joke.
It's like
very
callback
clear to
joke.
me that that's
It's not.
callback.
It's not clear because it's a totally different scenario.
Okay. Even though. So you really don't think that that's about consent?
I know what the joke was. I remember.
I thought it wasn't a joke.
Debate.
I thought it wasn't a joke.
I'm talking about the callback.
Okay.
I'm saying this is not a joke.
So what makes it not a joke?
Because it's not funny.
Oh, so you don't find it funny? So
Nobody found it funny. Nobody was laughing. Not a single person.
So if I go back to that timestamp and I look at it,
please do.
And nobody's going to say anything.
Pull it up now.
Nobody's going to say anything.
The only person that kind of chuckled was Brian.
So then it was a joke.
No.
Then why did Brian laugh?
I'm not sure.
Because he thought it was funny.
Perhaps. If the joke teller thinks it's funny, that's a problem.
Why?
Because if no one else is laughing except the joke teller, that's a problem.
That just means it's a bad joke, not that it's not a joke.
Okay, it's so funny. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I mean, can people tell bad jokes? Sure. And nobody laughs?
Yeah, bad jokes about.
But if you tell a joke and then you laugh, do you think it was intended as a? Yeah, do you think it was intended as a joke?
No, I don't.
So why did he laugh?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Maybe out of awkward, maybe out of insecurity, maybe. Yeah, people laugh in uncomfortable circumstances. You do it all the time.
Yeah, but when I asked you why, you said because he thought it was funny.
I said maybe it's insecurity. I have no idea. Maybe it's
way to change your answer, bro.
Oh yeah, I can change my answer to new information. How about that?
It's your information. How's it new?
The next one is divorce hurts man, marriage is pointless.
That's literally the opposite of my message.
No, what he's saying, that's one of the reasons how the show is not a given podcast. When we talk about divorce,
You're actively promoting people. You're actively saying why should men get married? That's a common talking point.
No, I usually ask why secular should.
Why should anybody get
Well,
married?
this is super important. So this, I don't even think you would argue that this is dating related. So the span and spectrum between religious and the religious who want to get married in their preferences and secularists who want to get married in their preferences is like fucking night and day. And so I always draw this parallel out when I ask religious people why do you want to get married, right? Especially religious women, and then you hear this answer, right? You know, I want to fulfill my obligations to God, or I want to, live a certain lifestyle which is based on my ethical system. That's why I want to get married. Yeah, secularist women, why do I want to get married? And oftentimes they'll give you a whole complete class list of, I want more resources, or I would like security, or they're not unreasonable, right? But they definitely have a completely distinction in opinion for why they want to get married. That is, I don't think you could disagree that that's 100% valid.
Yeah, sure. It was.
I have always maintained, I've always maintained, I can't create justification. Well, by the way, we're also talking about red gentlemen here. Out this. Yeah. Okay. He also is the same as I am in that for secularist men, because what Myron says is from the religious standpoint it makes sense, especially if there's an ecclesiastical word which can help government. Right. But he's the same way. Like from the secularist standpoint, justifying it for men is very difficult.
When he's talking about not getting married, he never had the idea about being secular. He said, why would men get married? They don't get anything out of it.
30 minutes.
This is the same message that Red Pill contributed. That's why they are. That's why they're all. That's why they're.
So when he's referencing men, right?
What does Andrew Tate think about marriage?
Who knows?
What is actually Myron I'm fine doing this. So Andrew Tate is looking at things also from the perspective of he has a various perspective. Discouraging, I actually understand why it is that secularism discourage marriage for men. That makes sense to me. And I actually understand why it is that Tate would discourage marriage for men as well. That also makes sense to me. But since his conversion, he actually seems to discourage it less, but it says instead that there needs to be reforms and changes to the way that
biggest podcasts that promote retro content or whatever, participate and educate, most of them, excluding you and Jim Bob, discourage marriage typically. So that's my point that I've been making this whole time. That you guys, these content creators are discouraging men and women from getting together because of benefits.
But I need you to tell me this now, okay? I'm going to actually concede this point so that you can tell me why the fuck that's bad for men.
Do you think men shouldn't get together with women?
I would love to hear your justifications for why it is that secularist men ought to get married to secularist women. Go ahead.
I think that red pill men, especially the incels of the world, 95% of them report severe depression and they're lonely. So these kinds of podcasts promote people being alone, and that's dangerous for men.
You're right, but have you looked at the unaliving rates for divorced men?
Uh-oh.
But
No,
you know
how much higher?
80% of all unalived, 80% of all unalived are men. 80% of all unalived
And
are
by
men.
the way, why didn't you throw in, because you're only getting one side of this, right? I've read probably all of these studies. In fact, if you look at the list, I bet you I have the list. Here's what's interesting. In the study that you're citing specifically, especially when it comes to unaliving, especially when it comes to unaliving, which demographic unalives the most? It's those who cohabitate. The cohabitate. There's no reason for you to have any type of moral standards. There's no reason for you not to go ahead and move in with your girlfriend. That's what they push. And they're out there.
Married more right now than anybody in the other demographic. Yeah, that's true. Mostly secular. So, oh wow. The secular on pushing this idea that you're saying secular has this non-moral code that you're saying just cohabitate with men.
Yeah, because women who are in college have access to much higher status men than women who aren't in college.
People are also getting divorced less.
Yes, because you have a high status man that you want who has lots and lots of money. Yes, that's the way that works.
The women are also making a lot of money. Do you know how?
No. So here's the thing that's so funny. Here's what you didn't include here. So when it comes to the middle, right? You're right that the middle class is higher.
I'm saying I'm right on
Which probably doesn't exist.
I appreciate you saying that.
Well, the thing is so fun. The concession to a point is that it makes these strange. So here's what's funny about this. You are correct that the middle class does get divorced a bit less. Or I'm sorry, get married a bit less. Right? In some cases, a lot less depending on but here's why. You can only get a guy or a woman based around the social dynamics of social circle that you're in, right? Sure. They only have access to women or men who are roughly making around the same amount or not the same amount as them, and usually they meet them at work. And college-educated women different. Now they have access to this kind of wider pool of much more wealthy men, right? And so yeah, of course they marry more often. They have a higher status there for them to go after.
Right.
Women are just going after high status. They make up 45% of the workforce, 43% of entrepreneurs. They're making their own.
Husband, sir? But yeah, you're not sure.
I'm not sure.
Oh, that's such a shock. Well, let me tell you, because I am sure, right? It's a significant
Why do you give me a number
amount.
if you know something?
I don't remember if it's
Oh, it's
between,
significant.
I don't remember if it's between 0.5 or 1, but it's at least 0.5 more. At least. So, but Mike, I don't even know if you're arguing.
Yeah, I'm arguing with that secular still get married.
Yes,
and it makes you stupid.
I would say that if it were the case that the middle class had access to the same amount of wealth as the college-educated women do, that they would be getting married to those
Okay, well, why don't they get married then?
because they don't have access to those men.
Okay.
Can you tell me why that's wrong?
I think
No, you can't, can you? Because it
I'm
makes
about
sense,
to.
doesn't it?
I'm about to. Why do you think there's such a gulf between relationships right now that you actually encourage?
I don't know what golf direction.
You encourage on pro dating to show this is what? That the gulf. She said men and women are dating. You said good.
Yeah, no.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You're gonna lie to everyone.
I don't think I did say that.
Yes, you
Or-
did.
or
You said it's good
or
because
you're leaving out
they're gonna.
the
No,
content.
I'll tell you what you said. You
Okay.
said they're gonna hold out because you think women are gonna cave first, so that we can start creating these gender roles again.
Ah, yes. So you're talking about my internal critique of Pearl Davis.
Earl Davis said men and women aren't dating, and you said good, and this is why it's good.
Yes,
That's not an
good.
internal critique.
This is why it's good.
That's not an internal
Yes,
critique.
it was. The entire conversation with Pearl was an internal critique.
That specific conversation was not an internal
The
critique.
whole conversation was an internal critique.
That's a very likely story.
It's not only like, but listen, am I a person who debates? Yeah, and do I have a stable for you, like? Okay. Why is it though that for some reason you think with Pearl Davis I would use it?
I will admit, throughout the podcast you were, but this specific point you weren't. This was your own personal belief that it's a good thing that men and women are dating because you only want Christian people dating.
No.
You only want Christian people dating and having babies. Circulate.
My point is largely there, but now this is off the top of my head. And I think it's unfair for you to hold it a standard of the things that I had that went on for hours. I can't remember every detail. But if I remember this correctly, what actually happened there was discussing secularism. The gulf got too wide. Right? Then people are going to divert themselves over to other X things. But I don't remember
It has nothing to do with secular. It's like you keep throwing that word in front of what these people are saying because it just helps your argument. But that's not what you guys are discussing.
Well, I
You're talking
don't
about
remember
men and
what we
women are
discussed
dating.
exactly.
Do you admit that men and women are dating currently? That it's you know men 18 to 24 have never asked a woman out in real life. Did you know that? So
No, that's not correct.
okay, correct me then.
Yeah, no, show me what. Demanded that I give you a number. What did I say? I don't ask you to know. I said I don't ask you to know other than it's significant. Right. Yeah.
Well, then show me the proof of that.
Yeah, I don't. That's all I know. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, so here. Just demonstrate it. Demonstrate it. Something hard.
Oh, this nigga said something. Oh.
Usually, how many people are dating? And he answers most of your questions. He has not answered. What was the question?
He said, you've asked a bunch of, you've shotgunned a bunch of questions. If he asks you a question back, you should respond.
Oh my god, this fucking room is cooking.
Oh man.
Peak that, dude. Alright. It's gotta be like it's awesome, dude. So yeah,
I asked about men and women dating at the golf this week.
yeah, what about it?
Do you admit that that's happened?
There's an all between dating?
Yeah, the men and women are dating less in general.
What does that mean? What are you asking me?
Do you think men and women are dating less? Yes or no?
Yes.
Duh.
And you think that's a good thing?
Contextually, it could be a good thing.
What do you mean by contextually?
Well, it could be that people are selecting for better mates, for instance, and so they're dating less because they have much more criteria for them to go off of. Maybe you could possibly see the results of that in some motherhood. It could be a good thing.
Do you think they're
Good.
more involuntary celibate?
Definitely
Do
not.
you think this is not an anomaly that's happening right now? I could see that.
Yeah, you can see that point. Right?
Yeah. No, I'm asking. Do you think it's a
So
real
what I actually said was, I do think it is the case that no, you are incorrect, and that this is not the worst it's ever been. I would say that the interpersonal sexual dynamics might be the worst they've ever been, but I also think that feminism is even more costly.
That's interesting. Why do you think that caused it?
Because all the stats show that every single way that you can imagine, which is terrific, on your day, I know that every Top three is not infidelity.
Infidelity, emotional neglect, and poor communication.
Say, no, it's not.
Followed by finances.
No,
so
it's
what's
not.
number one reason?
I just said infidelity.
No, it's not.
I said that.
Infidelity is number one reason?
Correct.
Okay. Which one of these studies proves that?
Did you bring any studies?
Just tell me which one
Don't, you
proves
know what? Don't say any fact for the rest of this debate if you're not going to sit and show me the study. How about that?
Bro, listen.
Don't show.
Did I
No,
make
no more
the claim?
facts. No more facts.
Did I-
You gotta stop interrupting.
Dude,
Every time
did I make...
you literally
Yeah,
were
hang on.
interrupting.
Did I make...
Boy, yeah, you
Did
gotta
I,
take
did
your
I
voice
make the
back.
claim or did you?
It's called moderating the show. You keep interrupting the entire time. If Andrew interrupts you, I'll say the same thing to him.
Yeah, but... make a claim or not.
I don't have the data in front of me, but I looked at
Go for it. Sure.
Do it now.
around.
Hey, you looked it
I
up
have a
before.
lot of data, man. I don't know exactly each
Why
source
have I
where I
looked
got
it
it
up
from.
before?
This is more about
Go on the top side of the river. Yep, sure is on top.
Yeah, we can get into that. But again, this is just wild to me. I thought you were going to tell me that that was the number one reason.
okay. Well, you can't use any facts if you don't have it.
The number one reason that I'm seeing is lack of commitment.
Well, that's infidelity and also
No,
emotional
it's
neglect.
not.
Okay. What does lack of commitment mean to you, Andrew?
I have no idea what it means. You tell me. What is lack
It's
of
not
commitment?
infidelity, right? Because infidelity doesn't
Well,
show
what
lack of
is it?
commitment. Does infidelity show lack of commitment?
So
Does
he's
it-
not
does
coming
it?
home by fucking 10. What
Okay.
are you talking about? So tell me, what does that mean? Lack of commitment.
Tell me.
You're the one who made the claim.
You're the one who said it was irreconcilable differences.
That's the number one reason they file divorces.
Yeah, but that's not the reason people actually file for divorce.
Okay, so the reasons that they give, you're saying that the number one reason women give is infidelity.
Infidelity, emotional neglect, and poor
Okay,
communication.
where can I find the statistic?
No one knows. I brought all the statistics. You didn't bring any.
What am I making up?
Anything you say, because you can't
Bro,
prove
what have I said that I made up?
about the finances.
Yeah, how do I make something up when I say I don't know for sure?
Okay, well, you said it's significant.
That is true. It is significant.
Okay, well, I'm not doing that.
Well, what does significant mean? Let's see. Specifically,
Do a slight jab. What does significant mean?
I'm not seeing infidelity as number one answer on any of these. Number one reason I'm seeing is financial problems.
That's not. And you've also said it's not the number one.
That's what I'm seeing.
Okay.
But I'm ready for a counterfactual.
Okay, fine. Listen, let's see that. I don't know. The point is, it's not irreconcilable differences. People file for a reason.
Well, we're talking past each other because we were talking about divorce,
Right.
And I said that they filed for irreconcilable differences. You asked me the meaning behind irreconcilable differences. I just don't think it's correct. And when I just look, it is. It is, but you can't tell me where.
But you're
I find that
blaming
data.
women for filing for divorce, it's making it sound like it's some fly-by-the-night thing they decided to do.
Saying that there's not reason. Okay. The question is why do you bring women to single? The question is whether or not there's good. Well, first of all, can you be a single mother and never be married?
Sure, but where's the father in this scenario?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Don't courts adjust towards women even when they aren't married.
You know, 1 in 3 children born out of wedlock don't see their father past the age of 3. You know that?
Why?
You tell me?
I'm waiting.
No, you tell me.
Why do I need to tell you when I ask you a question? Why?
Because single motherhood is not just a female problem.
Okay, but why? They not have
Because men tend to abandon children.
Can you demonstrate that?
I think it's it.
How?
33% of children don't see their father past the age of 3.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove that it's because the men don't.
Okay, how many men file for custody of a child?
I don't know the stats off the top of my head. Look,
95% of them file without contest from the father. 4% that do typically do get it. So if 95% of men are fighting for the child, I think we can look at men.
oh, I see. Okay. So
Damn.
tell me something. Who can actually have children? Men or women? Okay. Are these women being raped? Okay, so they have the responsibility of making sure that they don't get pregnant, right?
I think people have the responsibility to make sure they
But do you agree with me that it is the case that most men will sleep with most women, but most women won't sleep with most men.
So what?
So if that's the case, right, then women have greater access than men do, don't they?
Sure.
So if that's the case, why are they granting access to men who abandon their kids?
How do they know they're going to abandon their kids?
That's so weird, though. Wait a second. Let's back up. They're the ones who have the sexual access, right? So if they don't know, why are they sleeping with these men? They're the ones who get pregnant, not the men.
And men are the ones that get them pregnant.
Yeah. So what?
They're a part of the equation.
So what?
That's a part of the equation.
Yeah, but women are the ones who get to access that.
And men are the ones that access it.
Can men have abortion? Do you need women to be able to have abortion? Yes. That's the case. Right? And usually women ought to be able to have abortion and ought not to say on whether or not women have abortion. Because women are the ones who Christian ethics ought not to. It ought not be saying that they don't. I think so. Yeah. Under Christian ethics, no.
Do you think people should? Even if you're secular,
Under Christian ethics, I don't think secular people should.
and I think secular people also should.
Okay, but they can kill them.
I don't think it's right.
Oh, I know, right.
We're not gonna-
Sorry, you don't think it's killing?
No, it's not.
That's not.
It's
Okay,
not.
got it. They kill them, but they think they
It's not
should
killing.
abandon
Yes,
them.
it is. That's
I
a
don't
horrible
see-
framing. That's
like,
a horrible
I don't see
framing.
a great compelling reason here. The idea is that that these women, they're getting knocked up. They're the ones who have complete and total access to who sleeps with them. They're not getting raped, and they have the choice as to whether or not they abort or not abort. Yeah.
But someone also.
But does the man have a choice?
The man was.
Does the man have a
has
choice?
a choice to not impregnate a woman.
Now, what if the man-
The man has a choice to not
Does the
impregnate
man
a
have
woman.
the choice to keep the baby?
Not if the woman
Does the man
wants
have
to.
the choice to make the woman pay him child support and keep the baby?
How much
He
do they have?
fired off.
Can you answer my question?
No.
I just went.
How much is
No.
it?
No. Answer my question. No. I just said no. Okay. Back up.
How about you listen?
Yeah. Okay. Let's back up. Well, I said, can you answer my question? And you said no. You can see how I can perceive that you saying, I'm not going to answer your question. Right? Yes. No. Even the moderator thought that was the case. Okay. So let's back up. You do believe that it is the case that men can't force women to have their children.
Correct.
But women can force men to take care of their children.
That's correct.
Okay. How is that fair?
I'm not saying it's fair.
Okay, so then what is the... So then if men didn't want to have that child, why should we help them not take care of it?
Because it's their child.
What?
Because it is their child.
I'm super confused, but they didn't have a say.
It doesn't matter. It's their child.
Should they be able to have a say?
I don't think so.
Why not?
But you just said it's not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair. So what? They had a child. That's their child. They should take care of it, not abandon it.
So, okay, so to get this right, then women should be able to kill men's children if they want, right?
It's not framing it as killing.
Or, hang on, or keep them if they want, and the man has to pay child support for the child.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
And you think women should get to make that choice?
100%.
Why should we let the women make that choice?
Because they're the ones that have to conceive.
So, got it. So they're the ones who have to conceive. So they're the ones making the choice.
Yep.
So therefore it's a responsibility. Anything else?
No, because the
No.
father is also part of the responsibility.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who's making the choice?
They can have the child, but the father should take care of the child. And you don't disagree with that, do you?
Wait.
Do you disagree with that or not? Do you disagree
I
that the
can't
father
justify
should
it
take
from a
care of the
secular
child?
angle
Why not?
because it makes no sense.
It makes total sense. If you have a
Okay,
child,
let's
you
try
should
this.
take care of it.
Well, let's try this again. I just walked you through the logic, though.
Fuck the logic. Do you think a secular person should take care of the child that they have?
Does a Christian think that, of course? Well, I can't see how a secularist could justify it, no. Not if you're making the claim. So you made the claim.
From my worldview, if you have a child, you should take care of it.
Why?
Period.
Why?
Because that's my worldview.
Okay, why, though?
Because it's your child.
You'll
You're
justify
a part
it
of
for
it.
me.
I don't need to justify it
Right,
for you.
because when we walk around the logic, here's what we end up with. You say women have complete and total access, should be able to kill a man's kid, right? Or should be able to bring it to bear and make sure that the man takes care of the kid, but the man can't tell the woman that she has to have the kid, even if she's pregnant, right?
And There's a child in the
Hey,
world
that's
that
correct.
that man contributed to. He should take care of it.
Okay, so just to make sure that we got this right, it's an uneven standard for men versus
Sure.
women.
If that's the world we live in.
Yeah, so justify why it is that men shouldn't say, fuck that. When you ask me, Andrew, don't you think X? And I say, well, yes, I can. And when I say from a secular point of view, I actually can't answer the justification, just remember that neither can you.
And I would say most secular people also believe in
Yeah, from the Christian ethical angle, of course you're supposed to take care of your children. But from the Christian ethical angle, it's also completely appropriate, right, to put significant pressure on women to not have abortions. Meaning men get a say in the choice,
So
right?
what's wild to me is that you're complaining about single motherhood, and then you're sitting here saying, "Well, men should say fuck it," which is wild. That means you should say fuck it.
You know what an ought is versus a descriptor? What's an ought?
An ought is
Did I say that secular men ought to do that? Or did I say I can't? I can't do it. You should read it from you.
But you also don't think single motherhood is a good thing, correct?
That's correct.
So why don't you encourage men to take care of their children?
Should we force them to?
I think so.
Okay, so do you think that we should force men to take care of the kids?
Correct. That's what child support is.
But no, that's not. Well, that is true that they take it by force, I guess.
Yeah, but that's what
But when I'm talking about force is like, should we participate as a father? We should force that.
as long as the court rules that they should, yes.
No, that's different. I'm not asking about court rules. I'm asking, do you think we should force men to participate?
I think they should force at least child support, and if
No,
the father-
that's not my question.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Should they force men to participate in being a father? Being a father, no.
Not the father. If the father's going to be a shitty father, then no.
Can you explain to me how it is that if the woman can get child support from the guy, right, and you are not going to force any participation, aren't you pushing single motherhood?
No, you're blaming women for single motherhood.
Yeah.
And
They're the ones that have all the choice by your own admission.
But the fathers had no part to play in it. In single motherhood,
If it is
fathers
the
have no
case
part to
that
play.
fathers can't make the determination as to whether or not they can even have the kid, and only the woman can, you hold an uneven playing field. I have at least a consistent view. Women should not be allowed to abort, and men ought to actually be made to participate in their own children's life. That's my consistent worldview. Your worldview is inconsistent.
Okay.
You're making the it's totally
I
inconsistent.
said that if a man
You're
has a
just
child,
giving privilege to women.
if a man has a child, they should take care of it. Do they? That's a different story.
If
I'm
women
saying
have-
they should.
If women have children, should they take care of it?
Yeah.
Can they give it up for adoption?
Sure.
Okay. Can the man make the woman give, or why can't the man give up his parental rights and just walk away? If the woman can.
If the woman does, then he can.
Whoa, wait, that's really weird. I don't get it. If it is the case that the mother has guardianship of the father's child, she can still put the child up for adoption.
Sure.
Okay. But she can't.
If he has guardianship of the child, he can.
If he has guardianship,
Well,
right?
so he can too.
But if she's a single mom, what gives him guardianship?
Well, he doesn't have guardianship. I'm saying if a father has guardianship,
Yeah.
he can also put up the child for adoption. It's not just a mother.
Yeah, but who does it default to?
Why does it default to women?
Because that's the way the system is set.
How is it set that way?
Because it has become matrilineal rather than patrilineal.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It means from the father or from the mother.
No, I know the definition. You
It
always
means-
use those
it
words.
means that
But why,
property-
but why
property-
is the family court?
Yeah.
Why is it giving
Because
it to women?
feminists have made huge pushes in order to make it that way.
Feminists have pushed that women get custody of the child.
Yeah.
Are most judges in family court men or women?
And family court, they're men.
And so they're
I'm
influenced
sorry.
by feminists?
Sorry, wait a second. Are you saying that men can't be feminists?
I'm saying that I doubt that the majority of
Are
family
you saying
court.
that men can't be
I'm
feminists?
saying that I doubt all the family court judges are so influenced by
Do family court
feminism.
judges have to adhere to the law, or do they make the law?
I'm not sure if they make the law or not.
They have to adhere to the law. They don't make
Okay,
it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So family court judges are just adhering to the law, right?
And what's the law say?
Yeah, the law. So here's what happened. We used to have what are called coverture laws. Coverture laws actually forced men to take care of their families. That very same thing that you want, right? Of course, this also made children their property, and women, right, were also part of the man, right? That was how it went. But guess what? They had to take care of their family, or they went to fucking jail. That's what happened. They were just stayed together about 90, 95%. And then you know what happened? feminists really pushed real fucking hard for the average default laws. And here's what the average default laws were. The average default laws were saying basically, on average, the default's going to go to women, right? Now, there's a whole series of laws I can pull up and go through. But yes, this was pushed by feminists, so that there was default laws which pushed literally, that women by default had custody. Yes, that is correct.
That is not how it works, because if a father,
it's not.
if a father tries to get custody of the child, they often do get it. But most
they do now.
Oh, so feminists have failed them?
No, bro, there's been, since men's rights movement started, especially in about the mid-2000s, there have been reforms to the laws. Male custody has quadrupled because of men's rights advocacy groups. And yes, quadrupled. And yes, I can grab you that stat if you want it.
I'm not saying...
It has quadrupled because these laws have now begun to get rolled back. But it used to actually just be a straight default. A straight default.
My understanding of this is most fathers aren't filing for custodial guardianship
Yeah,
of
you're
the child.
talking, you have to understand that you're looking at it from a historic prism that doesn't make any sense. You're talking about modern laws and the way that modern custody arrangements happen. It wasn't always this case. The case used to be actually that children went to the men. That was the old laws that are coverture laws, right? That changed with feminism and radical feminism pushing for those laws to be changed.
So you're saying there was a time when the children were raised, there were more single fathers than single mothers?
No, there just wasn't really any erosion of marriage.
Okay, why did you say that? Why did you make that point? You made the point that back in the day, men were getting custody of the children, but then there were still more single mothers.
No, there wasn't very many single mothers either.
Okay, but they outnumbered the single fathers.
No, there wasn't. Listen, these marriages stayed together, but under the law, it was true under the coverture laws that the child was the property, or was at least associated property to the father. Yes.
I remember having this discussion because it goes back to the point that I've been trying to make.
Can you explain though your logic there?
Hold on.
I'm
No,
trying
I'm
to
not
actually understand the logic.
No, I want to get back to the thing we're
No,
talking about.
no,
I want to get back to the thing we're talking about.
Hang on.
No, I'm not hanging on. It's not about escaping.
Let's escape. I just want to get back to this logic.
This is the point that I'm trying to make.
Why would it be that there was more?
I'm trying to make.
I don't want to. I just want to finish. I want to get back to the thing. I want to get back. Last point. I don't give a shit.
I want to get to the next thing.
Why won't you answer my question?
Because the whole point I've been trying to make this whole time. Any chance you get, you blame women.
Yeah.
Any chance you get, you blame women. Single mothers, what? For everything. You blame women for the downfall of society. Let me ask you this. Do you blame women for the downfall of society, or for the downfall of society? The current trend of society? You don't? No. You never said that?
No. What I blame women for specifically, right, is feminism and feminist Marxist ideology. I do blame them for that.
Okay, as you said, feminism is the reason there's so many single mothers, right?
I think it's important.
Okay, so if that contributes to the downfall of society, so through that logic, wouldn't that contribute to the downfall of society?
And it would also be contributing to the downfall of society.
Okay, so you blame women for the downfall of society.
Feminism, yes, the ideology of feminism. Which, when I'm blaming the ideology, you just asked me about the execution. It's like, are you blaming men for the downfall of society, of a society which is mostly communist? Or would you be blaming, because they're enforcing everything, or would you be blaming the ideology? You're blaming, can you answer my question? No, you're blaming,
You're not blaming the ideology because women are the ones who...
So I'm going to ask the question again until you answer it.
Okay.
So you have a communist country, right? And the men are doing most of the bad stuff in the communist country. Would you blame the men, or would you blame communism?
I don't think that...
Can you answer my fucking question? Answer the question. Yes or no? I don't know. Okay. I'm just trying to answer that.
You're saying feminism, the ideology... Feminism, the ideology...
You lived in a communist country, and there's most of the men who are most of the communism. You don't know the ideology. You don't know. So you're saying guys should blame women? No, I'm saying that you should. I'm blaming the ideology. nature, right? Why would you track the other I do believe that if they're feminists, they're both but that's not what I'm saying. That's not what hate is. Wait a minute. You made the distinction earlier that if I hate an individual, that's not misogyny, right? I would say, yeah, so then if I hate all feminists, that's only hating individuals with an ideology, right?
If most women are feminists, then wouldn't that be?
I'm not sure that most women, well, I don't know, that's hard to say, but if it is the case, no, actually, if it was the case, that most women were feminists and you hated all women who were feminists, you still wouldn't hate women. You would only hate feminists.
That's an easy way out of that one.
Well, I mean, it's true though, right?
No, it's not true.
Okay, then explain the logic to me.
Because if women are feminists and you hate feminism, then you hate women.
No, you hate feminism.
Okay.
Yeah, so here's the thing, I hate men who are feminists too.
Are you looking at one?
Yeah, so here's the thing. If that's the case, then would that make me a misandrist?
I don't think so.
What if most men were feminists, which you said is about 80%? So then I hate 80% of men. By that logic, so I'm a misandrist, right?
If you hate them for that, yeah, sure.
Okay, so then I'm a misandrist and a misogynist.
Then yeah, you hate.
So I just fucking hate everybody.
I mean, I wouldn't say most.
I
men
just
are,
fucking hate
I wouldn't say
everybody.
most men are
You
feminists.
said 80%?
I granted me a hypothetical.
You weren't granting a hypothetical. I asked you the question. You said 80% agree with me.
No, I don't think.
And you're a
80% of men-
feminist.
I don't think 80% of men are feminists.
Okay, how many?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'll throw out a number. I'll say maybe 30%.
30%.
Yeah.
And how many women?
I have no idea. Maybe 80.
So a lot more?
Yeah.
And you think that should come up during a dating talk, huh?
I'm not saying it should. I'm saying that you
don't
blame
think that-
feminism.
you don't think-
which by default you blame
So
women.
if men
So
and women
are in the workplace.
Men and women are so ideologically split on like almost as like a 60-20 playing field, you don't think that's pertinent to dating?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you blame feminism for the downfall of society.
I did not just feminism.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do blame feminists for their part of the downfall of society, yeah.
Including going to work, including going to college, including all
No,
that
the
stuff.
idea of separating mothers from children. That was the worst
By
thing.
going
they
to
ever
work
did.
and going to college and
That's a terrible idea.
right.
Don't you think it's a better
Damn.
why is it a better idea for you to
In the
send
middle
your
of town
kid
like that.
away from you to like a fucking nanny or something to raise the kid instead of you? How's that better? I don't know. You don't know.
Well, you can move on.
No, because it's not fucking better, is it?
I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah, because it's not better, is it? Yeah, because is it better though? Is it better? Is it better to take the kid off the fucking Consuela?
Who knows? Maybe it's better than that. I have no idea. You're making these big, broad, general
Do you think for some families, do you think on average that it would be better if mothers raised their children or outsourced to raising their children?
They're not outsourcing it. Maybe it's for part of the day, Andrew.
That's
They're
outsourcing it.
That's not outsourcing it because there's still the rest of the day.
Okay, so how much time on average is it that you think that mothers are spending with their children in comparison to how much they used to spend with their children before they were in the workforce? You don't know. What if it about one of these numbers out? What do you think? Well, how about this? How about let's make it easy? More or less?
Less.
Less. They're spending less time with them now.
Right.
Do you think that that's good?
I think each individual family has their own.
Do you think that that's good?
I think each individual family has
Do you
their
think
own.
it's good for society? Mothers are spending
Yes.
less. You think?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Well, we'll come back to that. We do need to let a couple chats come through. We have quite a few who've collected. So we have Asha Nabu. Thank you.
Nashu Nabu donated $200. The league attorney, a divorce attorney, speaks on why men do not fight for their kids. Judges go off precedent. Because of this, lawyers tell fathers not to fight for their kids because they lose.
You know, I don't even want to grant that. Like, I don't even think you need to grant it. If the idea is just that women are completely in charge of all reproductive rights, period, and you can't justify why men need to care their fucking kids, but who gives a shit?
If I can respond to that, yeah, the majority of fathers that do contest tend to get their child, at least in modern times.
Nash, appreciate that. We have Sun coming in. Thank you.
Srulaxan donated $100. progressive feminist. This reduces gender preferences.
Yeah, I came here to say let's try to get men and women dating again, but we ended up talking about single motherhood.
Okay, well let's get into that. Let's
Let's chat get through the sorry chats, but we can come back to it. Son, appreciate that. We have
Stream donated $100.
Ugh.
Cheat and steal to hurt a father by fighting over custody. The question shouldn't be why men don't fight for their kids. It's why single moms them to begin with.
If you care about your kids, you'll fight for them. I don't care.
Well, the reason
I don't
is-
care the obstacles.
because my opponent over here demonstrated it for you. Women should have the complete and total right to all men's children, including the right to kill them, and should be able to force them to pay support for those children long term, and can't even justify why. He can't even give us a single reason why.
I did give you a reason.
Okay, what?
If you have a child, you should take care of it.
Why?
Because you should.
Why?
Because you should.
Oh, because you should. Because you should. Because you should.
Exactly.
You should give me $100.
Okay, well I won't.
Yeah, but if you say you could, but you should.
Okay, you should.
Yeah, but you should.
They should raise their children.
Yeah, but why?
They should fight for this.
Why?
Because it's their child.
Why?
There doesn't need to be any more. That's a sentence.
You're just saying, dude. That doesn't say anything.
Yeah, okay. It doesn't say.
There has been an 80-year cover-up of the existence of hurricane intelligence lines, covered up by elements of the U.S. government. But this past Friday, the first tranche of evidence was released to the public.
The evidence is absolutely clear that there is some form of life with advanced technology. They're all over the place.
But the people involved in gatekeeping this information don't think the public can handle the truth. People have had their lives threatened. A lot of them are afraid to come forward and tell the White House what they know. And this has been kept from even sitting president. And I've interviewed
The evidence is absolutely clear that there is some form of life with advanced technology. They're all over the place.
people involved in gatekeeping this information don't think people have their lives threatened. A lot of them are afraid to come forward and tell the White House what they know. This has been kept from even sitting president. Interviewed high-level intelligence officials, government officials, and there have been UAP crashes over the years, and in some cases, the crashed crafts had the bodies of non-humans in them.
And now we have people on ships seeing these things enter the water. We've seen enough times under enough different conditions that we just have to accept it as real.
So what exactly is inside this report?
We have so many sightings, even access to materials.
And there's a number of files, reports, video, and still images that were declassified. And the most notable piece of evidence in there is this.
So I have so many questions. You're probably familiar with this NASA report. They essentially say that they don't believe that these UAPs are aliens. Why would NASA be lying? Is there a reason why this stuff hasn't been captured on like an iPhone? Are they currently living amongst us? And do you trust the Trump administration to release all of the available information?
I think eventually we'll get to hopefully we'll all see in movies where the sitting president steps to a microphone and tells the world we're not alone in the universe.
This is super interesting to me. My team put out this report to show me how many of you have watched the show subscribe. And some of you have told us, according to this, that you are unsubscribed from the channel randomly. So, favour to ask all of you, please could you check right now if you've hit the subscribe button, if you are a regular viewer of the show and you like what we do here. We're approaching quite a significant mark on this show in terms of the subscriber number. So if there was one simple free thing that you could do to help us, my team, everyone here, to keep this show free, to keep it improving year over year and week over week, it is just to hit that subscribe button. Just double check it. Hit it. Only thing I'll ever ask of you. Do we have a deal? If you do it, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make sure every single week, every single month, we fight harder and harder and harder and harder to bring you the guests and conversations that you want to hear. I've stayed true to that promise since the very beginning of the Diary of a CO, and I will not let you down. Please help us. Really appreciate it. Let's get on with the show. Dr. Howard, Dan, I wanted to have a conversation with both of you today because you are two of the most popular voices online on this subject of UAPs, which is unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Right, exactly.
It has been in all the news recently because Trump, a couple of days ago, released 400 classified files containing videos and photos and different reports on this subject of UAPs. Now, I don't have an opinion. I honestly haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole on this subject, but I wanted to have a conversation with you because you do have opinions. So, starting with you, Dan, what is your background, and as it relates to the subject of UAPs, what is it that you believe that most people don't know or understand?
My interest in this topic comes from my childhood. And so over the years, I read every book on the topic, watched every doc. I always wish someone had made a super serious, credible, sober documentary that only interviewed people who have direct knowledge of this topic as a result of working for the U.S. government. And so got into producing as I was getting access to high-level intelligence officials and government officials before I even filmed. Really quickly learned how serious and real the situation is, and how serious it's treated behind the scenes. And I made this movie, The Age of Disclosure, in secrecy over 3.5 years. And I would say the headlines that I learned that the average person doesn't know is that there has in fact been an 80-year cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligent life. It has been covered up by elements of the U.S. government since at least the late 40s. Other nations have also covered this up. And the other major headline is that the people within the U.S. government that have been gatekeeping this, they've also been involved in a high-stakes, secret Cold War race with adversarial nations like China and Russia to reverse engineer this technology of non-human origin. And the stakes couldn't be higher. Those are the two massive headlines. And I'm proud to say when the film came out, it created a national conversation at an unprecedented level. And it led to President Trump issuing this directive in the middle of February, super unprecedented historic directive, instructing federal agencies to start declassifying evidence it has they have of non-human intelligent life and UAP. And then that process began this past Friday. The first tranche of evidence was released to the public.
And during the process of producing this documentary, who did you speak to?
I got access to the highest levels of government, military intelligence. My interview subjects range from Secretary Rubio, who's also our national security advisor now, White House National Security Council members, Navy fighter pilots, admirals, generals, former Secretary of Defense, the leadership of all the recent classified U.S. government UAP investigations. Every single person is extremely credible. Hal was one of my interview subjects. Hal's one of the most senior scientists to work on this topic for the U.S. government in classified projects. And him and all these other people interviewed, they had a lot of information they could legally share over the years, but they were always discouraged from doing so, and they never really had the opportunity to comfortably do it. No one wanted to be the one guy out on a limb saying something extraordinary on CNN or Fox or 60 Minutes and then being subject to the pushback and the ridicule. And so when I realized that, I started socializing a plan for how to step out of the shadows arm in arm with safety in numbers.
I'll pick up on that point there where you talked about safety in numbers. How he mentioned you there. You're part of the documentary. I saw you as well in the trailer of the documentary. What is your background and what reference points are you drawing on to speak on the subject of UAPs and UFOs, etc.?
I'm a quantum physicist. I work for the National Security Agency, for various organizations in the intelligence community like CIA and so on. And so as part of my technical work, I was also a consultant, chief science advisor to Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace. He's really quite a titan. I mean, he has 2 space stations orbiting the Earth. So anyway, those people who are in the space business and they're moving out into space, they just can't help but wondering, what are we going to run into when we get out there? As a science advisor to him, turned out that the Defense Intelligence Agency came forward and said, we need to find out really what's going on in the so-called UAP area.
So then they determined they were just going to start a UAP program. That program they started was called OSAP. They hired a team, for example, HAL. And that program started in 2008 and got a lot of pushback behind the scenes because it turned out when they looked all over the intelligence community to see if there was another UFO program and didn't think there was, it turns out there was one. And there was a deeply hidden program referred to as the Legacy Program. And it had been operating in the shadows since the 40s. Outside of congressional oversight, outside of the oversight of the White House, completely,
Completely hidden away.
As hidden as a program could be. And so they started pushing back behind the scenes against everyone involved in OSAP because they didn't want anyone else looking into this, right? started to cause a lot of bureaucratic issues for them, red tape issues, and ultimately OSAP lost its funding in 2010, despite the fact that it was looking into very real issues like UAP over our nuclear weapon sites. It shut down in 2010.
Why do you think it shut down?
They were dealt these bureaucratic hurdles behind the scenes by people involved in the legacy program, people who just caused problems and prevented funding, and it's a lot of it's a big bureaucracy. People can do things behind the scenes to prevent funding from coming through for programs, and so ultimately they lost their funding in 2010. And then Jay Stratton and other people involved, they were continuing to look into this because they didn't want this serious national security concern to go uninvestigated, right?
So that's how somebody like me gets convinced. These pilots are out there, and they suddenly see craft coming out of the ocean and making right angle turns, 6G or whatever, and they say, oh God, this is way beyond our physics. So I and other physicists sort of dug into, what could be responsible for this. And we actually found that just like we use so-called Maxwell's equations and electromagnetic stuff for everything being electromagnetics, we have Einstein's equations of general relativity for black holes and all that kind of stuff. But it turns out if you could engineer those, you would actually get the same effects that people are observing with these UAP crafts. And we think we've come up with, what it is about the science of it. It's just that we don't have the engineering to do it.
Do you believe in UAPs?
Absolutely believe in UAPs because I've been exposed to data about them.
A more specific question would be, do you believe in aliens?
Yeah, so a number of the people I interviewed went on the record stating that they know from their own personal experiences that there have been UAP crashes over the years that have been recovered by elements of the U.S. government, and in some cases, the crashed crafts had the bodies of non-humans in them. And numerous people went on the record saying that. And keep in mind, everyone I interviewed only shared what they lawfully could. There was a line they couldn't cross. Everyone I interviewed was aware of classified information that they can't talk about, but they went right up to the line and made it clear that there had been recoveries of non-human bodies. A couple people actually testified under oath to Congress saying the same thing.
Why wouldn't they be able to talk about it publicly?
Well, when you're involved in certain programs, you sign certain agreements that prevent you from sharing specific information.
Of course, the big concern is, whatever we might learn about this kind of craft and so on, our adversaries are out there, and probably there have been crashes in Russia, crashes in China, and so if we reveal what we're learning about the subject area and said it publicly, then it might help some potential adversary.
Yes, saying
Get a step ahead. So that's why it's all just kept really close in.
So a saying that I heard often from my interview subjects: you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. Meaning, you can't tell the public what we know and don't know without also telling China and Russia what we know and don't know. And giving them that information might give them a competitive advantage. And the obvious question anyone would ask when hearing that is then, well, okay, so what's shifting? Why is that no longer the leading thought? Secrecy is best. And the answer is because the U.S. is in a really high-stake technology race against these adversaries to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin. And the secrecy around it in the U.S. since the 40s has created a scenario where the scientific community and academia don't even know it's real. They don't even know it's a valid area of inquiry.
Don't even believe it's real.
Yeah, I mean, the smartest kids graduating at MIT this year, they are not thinking that this is something they can put their brain power towards.
So, come back to the question, do you believe in aliens?
I 100% believe that non-human intelligent life is here and has been here for a long time.
When you say here, do you mean
Earth.
currently living amongst them?
I don't know about the living
Don't know
amongst us
about
part.
that.
I don't know about that. But
Don't
look,
rule it out. But
there is UAP activity being reported on a daily basis by commercial airline pilots to the FAA, by Navy fighter pilots off the East Coast being reported, up the military chain. And on top of that, regular activity over our nuclear weapon sites inside the United States. It's happening on a regular basis on the nuclear sites and on a daily basis in commercial air travel space.
UAP have come over nuclear missile sites and actually turned off the missiles. want something like that happen. It's got to make it too.
And the technology that they're displaying is technology no humans have. And again, there has been some crashes, and in those crashes, there have been the bodies of non-humans.
How do we know that? How do we know that in those crashes they've recovered bodies of non-humans?
The whistleblowers basically coming forward from
So
the program.
so the basis of that evidence is that some people have said it.
At this point, until previously classified information regarding crashes is declassified, until that happens, the best we can hope for is credible people putting their reputation on the line to tell you this is what's been happening.
Did someone during your process of making the documentary who had seen non-alien, non-human life, non-human intelligence, tell you that? Who was that?
A number of people, but notably, Jay Stratton, who we just talked about, who co-created, co-founded OSAC, and then became the director of UAP Task Force, the largest whole government investigation of UAP ever.
What did he say?
He went on the record in the film saying he's seen non-human beings and non-human craft with his own eyes. That was the farthest he could go at that point.
Why did he say he couldn't go further?
He had a situation that he was involved in that, for a few reasons, he just wasn't comfortable talking about it yet. Something that I think he just wanted to make sure he legally could. Now, going back to credibility, like, take a guy like Jay saying that, when Jay retired a few years back, he was part of the senior executive services of the federal government. That's a level less than 1% of all federal employees ever reach. It's equivalent of a 2-star admiral or general. Very, very senior, very trusted. Operated at a very high level. He had worked with naval intelligence in a senior capacity. He had worked with the CIA. He had worked with the Defense Intelligence Agency as the head of aerospace warfare. He's a super serious, credible guy. And he's putting his reputation on the line to share this information to the extent that he legally could and comfortably could.
And when you asked him why the world doesn't know this stuff, what would he say?
There's a lot of reasons. I mean, certainly the idea that we can't tell our friends about our enemies has been a driver. Just to recap the reasons for secrecy, I actually believe it's better to kind of start from the beginning. When in 1947 there was a crash at Roswell of non-human aircraft, and RAAF captured flying saucer on the ranch in Roswell, Louisiana. And then this is the image of their cover-up story. I'm trying to show you what they're doing. Yeah, so multiple people in my film go on record saying the Roswell crash really happened. Technology of non-human origin and non-human bodies were recovered. You put yourself in the shoes of the military and government at that point. You put yourself in Truman and Eisenhower's shoes. You're just coming out of World War II. The world was just chaos for a very long time. It's only starting to settle down. You can't exactly step to the microphone and tell America that there's a new threat that we know nothing about and we can't protect you from. They're far advanced, what's the advantage of that? So secrecy became the plan at that point, and they had more questions than answers. So everyone I've talked to gave me context, explained that the plan for secrecy went in motion there. Let's investigate, let's find out more about what we don't know before we tell the American people. That was quickly followed by the Cold War era, and we learned that Russia also had retrieved technology of human origin. So we knew we were in a technology race. So then the idea, can't tell your friend without telling your enemy, rule of dead. So now the Cold War mentality, led to more secrecy. And as a security wrapper for this program that it started, they created the stigma in the late 40s, early 50s, this cultural stigma, this idea that you're crazy if you look into this topic, you're wacky, you'll have your reputation ruined, your career ruined.
There was actually a CIA meeting where people got together and said, okay, in order to not have people be pursuing this area, let's go out of our way to spread what we would call disinformation.
Yeah, it's basically the most effective disinformation campaign in the history of the US government, because it got into our culture. Some movies were funded that made aliens seem silly, and the idea of life from elsewhere seemed ridiculous, and that got compounded over the years. And then we got to the point where we were like, just a few years ago, we were the average person. It's not real. Scientists, academia, they think it's conspiracy stuff, it's nonsense, it's silly. There's no advantage for leaders of this or for military to speak up about what they learned and saw. Stratton and Jim McCaskey when they put together OSAP in 2010, and they started to go out there and collect data and get evidence, and they started to actually share it with the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee, and looking at classified data in a classified setting, people like Marco Rubio, who was the vice president of the Senate Intelligence Committee, started to realize, not only is it here, but we've got a problem, right? A lot of UAP activity over these highly classified sites, like nuclear weapons sites, a lot at stake. We are in this, race with other nations, and the stigma has created a disadvantage for us. It's hard to win a technology race when the majority of scientists don't know it's a valid area of inquiry, right?
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
There are at least 4. Now, I have not had, but I believe the people who I've talked to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life. At least.
and the people I've talked to through the process of the documentary, both on camera and off the record sources, and the people I've talked to over decades, have said that there have been dozens of recoveries of crashed craft in the U.S. alone. Dozens of craft of non-human origin that crashed organically or caused a crash and then recovered.
And have you spoken to people who, you talked about Jay, have you spoken to other people that have been working on these crashed crafts?
I've talked off the record with some people who are involved in recoveries. They would not go on camera. Special forces people that would not go on camera. One I actually thought, I've mentioned this in an interview, but one I thought was going to do an interview a couple days before sent me a message saying, after further consideration and long talks with my wife, I decided that before getting my wife, I participated in the interview. I thought that was like very unsettling message to get, obviously, but also very specific word choice, forfeiting my life.
What did he know?
He was a very senior special forces guy. He told me he had been involved in multiple recoveries. That's what he told me. And I met him through some early on in my process, I got connected with the Senate Intelligence Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee, and they had on their own learned the reality of the situation through the work of OSAP and then ATIP and then the UAP Task Force, and through their own intelligence channels. The leaders on those committees wanted to educate the public about what they could lawfully about this, but they didn't have a way to do it. It's such a complicated situation. It takes a while to explain it. You can't do it in like a 6-minute news segment or CNN, or even like a 15-minute, 60-minute segment. You just can't do it. And no one wanted to be the one guy trying to do it. So when I started putting together the film and socializing this safe way for people to step forward, it also quickly became those people's plan for disclosure. That's why Secretary Rubio participated. That's why White House National Security Council members participated. It became, amongst the group of people who learned the truth, it became the plan for disclosure, the way to bring this information out in a thoughtful way.
Do the presidents of the United States know about this stuff? Are they aware?
Historically, no. Yeah, and even Rubio says on camera that, historically, this has been kept from even sitting presidents. So, a number of the people in my film break down who's involved in this. To put it simply, it's elements of the CIA, elements of the Air Force, elements of the Department of Energy, and a few major defense contractors. They have the ability to access information from a number of federal agencies and branches of the military, but the primary leaders of this program are the CIA, the Air Force, the Department of Energy, and major defense contractors. And Rubio breaks down in the film the way our bureaucracy works. You can have career bureaucrats in positions of power at those organizations for decades, and they can just wait out sitting presidents. They can wait out sitting senators. And that's what's been happening up until this point now. So the fact that Rubio had learned so much about the reality of the situation and the extent of the cover-up, and then ended up arguably the second most powerful guy in the world as our Secretary of State and our National Security Advisor at the same time, with This has only happened once in U.S. history. Henry Kissinger for 2 years. No one else has ever had both those jobs at the same time. The fact that he ended up in that position of power and influence after learning the reality of the situation, and right as the age of disclosure is coming out in private presidential conversation, it really led to current President Trump being informed about this in a way that no president has in a very long time.
So are you saying that the United States don't think the public are ready to even know that this exists? Because, you know, they could tell us that they have recovered UAPs or aliens, whatever it might be, without telling us about the technology.
They could, and I think we're going to get to that point.
Yeah, I think that they were trapped in the system that had blown up. And people behind the scenes working in that program said, well, you know, we don't know how the public is going to respond, so let's be safe.
Because I was looking at some of these quotes and he said, well, I don't know if they're real or not. I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it.
Barack Obama said that aliens are real.
Well, he ain't classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know,
So aliens are real.
no, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talked about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. You believe it, Peter?
Well, if the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so if you want to make an announcement.
I may get him out of trouble if I declassify.
One of the things that came out in the disclosure is that during Trump's first administration, his cabinet was briefed by the UAP task force, by Jay Stratton. And when he briefed them, he was told that they had asked for this briefing because they needed to be able to evaluate what the repercussions would be if Trump decided to step back and want to tell the world and not open Congress. Obviously, he didn't end up deciding to do that then. However, in his new administration, he's got Ruth in a position of Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, fully aware of the situation, and that has given him the comfort to put this process in motion. There's certainly a disclosure process on full.
Obama said in an interview that he did with Tyler Cohen, when asked about aliens, Obama said, they're real, but I haven't seen them. They're not being kept at Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy to make it the President of the United States. Now that sounded to me like cross-sarcasm. I mean, saying they're real, but I don't think they're real.
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
So it would appear to me that Obama also didn't know of any aliens.
I think Obama was largely kept in the dark. I think he does know the face fact that we're not in the universe. I actually think when he said they're real, I think that was his honest, candid, genuine statement. I think when he then said they're not kept there for water, he's also being honest because none of my sources say that UAP and aliens are being kept at Area 51. They're being kept somewhere else. So I think he was being honest there, and I think when he made the comment unless there's a giant conspiracy, if you watch the tape, he like sips his cup and raises his eyebrows. He said, "There's a giant conspiracy." That's the following day, Trump was asked about that on Air Force One, and he responded saying Obama revealed classified information, and he shouldn't have said that. And I think that's the truth.
Yeah.
I think presidents don't know, and they're told not to talk about it.
Trump has started to release a lot of classified information around UAP and aliens. The first batch of that was released a couple of days ago. What exactly is inside this report?
There was a number of files, reports, video, and still images that were declassified. This is information that previously had been classified or just never really made public. This is just the first tranche of what will be released. The most notable piece of evidence in there is an image, a still image from the 1972 Apollo mission. It's an image of a triangle, a seemingly triangle-shaped craft hovering above the moon and above the astronauts. And the image is taken from the lunar module. And the UAP task force looked into this image years ago and determined it was real. That seems to be the most glaring piece of evidence in this tranche. Tal and I both have a lot of the same sources of information, and everyone we talked to at various federal agencies has told us that when the president gave the directive in the middle of February for federal agencies to declassify evidence of non-human intelligent life and UAP, only a few engaged with it. They only gave a small percent of what they had. And they only had a couple weeks to do it.
One of the things I think I've always struggled with the idea of these kind of conspiracies is that I don't know why that information would necessarily fall into the hands of like government officials, because alien life forms and UAPs would be visible and land anyone sort of that wide. So you can imagine a world, especially in a world where we have, I don't know, like 8 billion iPhones roaming around. You can imagine a world where there was some kind of UAP crash like that, it would be on TikTok within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Or if there really was
Someone got there with an iPhone.
there was that incident earlier in the year with the way drones in America.
Jersey.
Jersey. And that was on social media within minutes. Everyone was talking about it, looking at what they were. I don't know, I think in the modern world, because we have so many ways to capture high quality video, if there was something out there, we would have seen a very clear image of this thing by now.
Well, there's a
That's
lot.
why there's a lot that came out in these files, because over the years, our sensor systems that the pilots had in the planes got so much better. They've captured really astounding.
Does this life want to be seen? Do these aliens want us to know that?
I have to assume that given the quality of their technology, they wouldn't want to be seen. We wouldn't be seen. So it seems like, I would say there's evidence that for whatever reason, they want to be seen.
But also, like, I personally think someone answering it through the lens of, like, how humans think, right? For all we know, we're ants to them. You don't hide from ants, you walk around them, you know what I mean? But you also don't pay attention,
Based on their behaviours and the interviews you've done, how do you think they view us?
I honestly feel like the dynamic is, we are very, very far below the population. Hal makes an analogy in the film. He says, the ants in your tree line in your backyard, they can be there for generations. You never think about them, walk around them, hiding from them, they're there and you don't really care. But what happens if they evolve one day and out of nowhere they figured out how to get into your house and they've beelined under your door and they're in your living room, right? We might have evolved technologically over the last 80 years since we cracked the atom so quickly that we're now the equivalent of the ants showing up. Like all of a sudden, this warring species, this violent species, humans, we progressed so quickly. We went from no real technological progress for a very long time to cracking the atom and then figuring out nuclear technology and then continuing to increase, our nuclear technology development. And we have this program that has been retrieving aircraft and trying to reverse engineer them. So we might get that point when we're about to do what they do, and all of a sudden, our problem. That might be the explanation of why they pay so much attention to our nuclear process. There's a lot of UAP activity, not only at the nuclear weapon sites all over the world, but of sites involved in the process, the nuclear process, like uranium or refineries. It might be we've gotten to the point where all of a sudden they have to.
In the Soviet Union, the UAP came over and actually started a launch of the Russian missile. I mean, it actually forced the system to start under attack by the intelligence community's access to information about it.
Every person we spoke to in Jelikorovitcha said they saw a flying saucer on that day. For hours, it hovered over the nearby ballistic missile base. No one had touched any buttons. No one had entered any code. And yet, as the UFO hovered over the base, the control panel showed the missiles were preparing to launch. For 15 agonizing seconds, the base lost control of its nuclear weapons.
Logically, I would think that unusual activity around critical sites. I'm not surprised that there was really super unusual activity happening in my background, for example. But around highly consequential sites, I wouldn't expect there to be people logically, I would assume that there would be an increased probability of showing up in the slide.
Exactly. Those kinds of people are those who recognize exactly what you're saying. And so they decided to track the enlightenment by getting a whole lot of nuclear assets in one location to see if that would draw them in.
So, our nation and other circumstances that, for lack of a better term, a certain level of nuclear footprint in a small radius tends to attract them. And our nation figured that out and so did other nations.
One of the things that I've thought about is, I know very little about this, but I know one thing I know is how big the universe is. I'm quite a big fan of space exploration, invested in everything, and from my fascination with space is like how big the universe is and how long it would take us to travel from Earth to the nearest galaxy. The closest star system to us is called Alpha Centauri. It's over 4 light years away, which is about 24 trillion miles. If we travelled at the approximately 10% of the speed of light, which is invisible, it would take a ship 40 years to get there.
Unfortunately, what we learned in physics, using that as relativity, turns out that there are ways of modifying the speed of light to make it much higher or much lower. So you can do that. So when you get into essentially modifying what we call the space-time method, you can get to a point where you can make wormholes and warp drives, and those are things that are not off the charts. I mean, there are actually textbooks by general relativity experts on the fact that you can engineer the space-time. So you could do it. You could get from here to there.
But you're not saying you would travel in like a line like you do in a plane.
Well, you could. You could. If you arrange for the effective speed of light in that line to be much higher, then without breaking the speed of light, you could zoom over there.
But no one at the moment knows how to do that on Earth.
We can write the equations and see how it doesn't violate our physics equations, but we don't have the engineering prowess.
So we figured out, basically, how these craft are operating, the theory of it, but we don't sure it's something exactly to replicate it.
What I'm pointing at is if you travel at that speed across the universe, if you even almost the size of a pebble, it would be like a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're modifying space, it's sort of like making a surfer wave see-through. You arrange to have space moving like that. Up to a rock, it's just
So
you
what-
can engineer.
That's how I wrap my head around it. Essentially, they're warping space-time in a localized area. They're creating an immense amount of energy around the craft, and it creates essentially a bubble around the craft. And that bubble separates the craft from the environment around it. So the environment has no impact on the craft. That's why we see transmedium travel, like a craft going, smooth from space to air to the water without even a splash. The environment around the bubble has no bearing on the craft inside it. And the craft inside it is in its own space-time. And once you wrap your head around that, then things like interstellar travel become totally possible.
I'm 100% more productive using this app, despite spending 50% less time typing. And that might confuse you, but let me explain. Which is exactly why I invested in Whisper or Flow. They're also one of our sponsors for this podcast. Whisper Flow turns your speech into text, so you can send it to any audio device at any time. And I promise you, it doesn't seem to ever make mistakes. This is the most accurate voice dictation I have ever used after a decade of trying to get one to work. Not only does it save me a ton of time, it also corrects your speech. It can change your mind mid-sentence before turning it into text on the device. I love it, and I know my team loves it too, because when I posted it in the Slack channel, asking if anybody wanted a pro version, half the office said yes, and they had it within an hour, which tells me everything. This is the tool you and your team need to speed yourself up, to capture those important ideas, so that they don't disappear. Head over to whisperflow.ai/Stephen to download it now. whisperflow.ai/Stephen. I run multiple companies that have multiple sales teams. One of the things as a founder of a company that's often confusing is you find it hard to figure out where sales are. So about 10 years ago I started using Pipedrive in my current company, and it's also the reason why I switched over all of my commercial teams to my current media company called Stephen.com that has Pipedrive as well. Not only do they competition, but they've been an incredibly effective way of scaling our sales engine over the years. Pipedrive is an easy-to-use intelligent CRM, and at its very core, it makes your sales process visible through one dashboard. A visual pipeline showing every deal, what stage it's in, what needs to happen next, and it's all in real time with no delay. It doesn't magically close the deal for you, of course, but it does replace complexity with clarity. If you want to join over 100,000 companies already using Pipedrive, you can use my link for a 30-day free trial with no credit card payment needed. Head to pipedrive.com/CEO to get started. That's pipedrive.com/CEO. One of the paradoxes with this is they appear to be so vast in their physics and their technology at the same time, which is
Actually, some of them have not cracked, but have been simply left in the desert, sort of like a gift or a donation. We're still trying to figure that out. So, I mean, some of them do crash, and that can have maybe some of our electromagnetic pulsing and laser pulsing can interfere with their technology, and you might get attacked.
Well, why do you think another country hasn't come to similar disclosures and similar things?
I think our allies follow the U.S.'s lead, and I think our adversaries, primarily China and Russia, have no reason to go public. They don't have the same sort of societies and dynamics. Like, Xi can do what he wants anyway. What's the advantage to him? Same thing with Putin. You know, there is no advantage. And when you look at it that way, you really quickly get to the
Maybe the 40 planets are likely capable of supporting life because it's the habitable zone. Out of more than 6,000 planets discovered so far by this. There are approximately a trillion galaxies in the universe. Within this galaxy, 100,000 planets can potentially host life, according to Oxford University. Now, I believe that if you think about the entire universe, I believe that we're not the only life in the universe. I think that's a very scientific conclusion. Probabilistically, it would be pretty incredible if we were. I mean, it's almost inconceivable where we are. The question of whether that life has been here is a question, for me, is still a question mark. Because I think Elon, wherever you put it, he is someone that seems to just say the things. And this is part of the quality of his filtered. He there are aliens in our galaxy, and he said on multiple occasions that he's built on he said, anyone can do you think he knows?
I think that you can't operate in space at the level he does, or operate as a contractor at the level he does, without having clearances that require secrecy. You know, there's all kinds of levels of secrecy. You know, everyone knows the word classified. There's classified projects. There's also black projects that are unacknowledged special access programs, where you literally, by law, are required to not acknowledge the existence of the program or anything it does. That's literally
Anything it does.
yeah. That's literally the whole. They're literally referred to as unacknowledged special access programs. So if you're involved with an unacknowledged special access program, someone asks you that, you have to say if they are part of the program. But just because someone's read it on unacknowledged special access program doesn't mean it's all their employees.
always something bad time.
Well, you see
Big bro, it's like
I mean, you had class
W.
There's a lot we don't know about it.
Could you
I don't know whether I'm wrong or that senior leaders across the government and saying they come across
could it be the case that all of those people misinterpreting pilot saw something moving in their horizons when they were at this
Not really.
In some cases, it can have actual materials, craft bodies that aren't human.
Also, a lot of these sightings, they're now in the process of the White House, cabinet members are in the process of identifying where the evidence exists within federal agencies and the military so they can get access to it themselves and then determine from there what can safely be shared with the public. I think once they get their hands on more evidence, then a plan will be put in place for telling the world this conclusion. I think it's like fait complete basically. Like it's gonna get to that point relatively soon.
if we get to that point and you get personally invited into wherever they're keeping these materials and you get to see every single file that exists, and as you go through those files you realise that a lot of what you've been told is not true because there's other explanations, how would it like fundamentally change the way that you see the world?
Some of the UAP we've seen, like take the famous, everybody knows the Tic Tac UFO, right? That Commander Dave Fravor, the Navy fighter pilot, interacted with in 2004, right?
I'll put that on the screen for anyone that hasn't seen it.
Great. And so take that UAP for example. Multiple data collection systems and Commander Dave Fravor, a legend in the Navy, Top Gun guy, commander of an entire naval strike group, right? Like total badass, legend of a guy. He sees this with his own eyes and a bunch of data collection systems capture data confirming it. This UAP went from hovering above the ocean to instantly being at 80,000 feet, which is the entrance to space, right? And it did that maneuver all afternoon. The amount of energy required to do that is so bonkers. No human beings have the ability to create that much energy, right, in a localized area for an aircraft. And so, to answer your question, if we find out, the unthinkable, that this is not non-human intelligent life, that some humans have figured out how to crack that technology, and did it as recent as 2004 when the Tic Tac incident happened, that would be even more mind-blowing than accepting that life from elsewhere is here in real time, because it would mean that some group of humans leapfrogged the rest of all of humanity technologically by thousands of years, and then seemingly did nothing with that.
Or it could be something else. That's the nature of unusual things. They become great stories. So I think in the case of the Tic Tac incident, again, what I'm trying to do is interrogate this from all angles. Could it have been something else?
Could it be any isolated event like that? You could do the whole could it be this, could it be that thing, but you got to take a step back and look at the collective. It's one report like that after another. Incredible people since World War II. during World War II, pilots were seeing what they called Foo Fighters, like these orbs that would move alongside our fighter jets, right? Like they would move in line with them.
And now we have people on ships seeing these things enter the water and then moving it all the speed. No human being.
As far as I know, our fastest submarines go like 50 miles an hour. These things are going hundreds of miles an hour under the ocean. So these craft are transmedium. They're seen in space, they're seen in the air, they're seen underwater. There's just too much activity to ignore.
And that would be a hard one to say, well, is there some sonar thing that makes you think something is doing that? But it seems enough times under enough different conditions that you have to accept that it's real.
Is there a reason why this hasn't happened like an iPhone? When in 4K?
There's been a lot of stuff captured by phones and video cameras. In that scene in the disclosure I mentioned, where the break down, creating a warp bubble around the craft. That warp bubble also makes it very hard to get clear video. If you're taking a video through essentially a space-time barrier, it's like the equivalent of taking pictures of, trying to take video of a koi fish in a pond in a bucket of water. Look all the storage going through the water. This bubble, it makes it pretty hard, and you end up with the kind of videos we see.
You're probably familiar with this NASA report that they produced when UAP's Independence Briefing report, when they essentially say that they're going to prove that these UAPs are aliens. Why would NASA be lying?
Like all these big bureaucracies, there's people who are aware of the truth, and then there's people who have the truth kept from them. One of the people I interviewed was Mike Gold, who was on the UAP, the NASA UAP task force, and he talked about how that effort was flawed from the start. They didn't want to have a result that said NASA has all this information that they kept from public. They wanted the result that they landed on, which is there's nothing to see here. And they were really discouraged from, for example, that image of a triangle, what clearly appears to be a tribal craft over the moon. They were told not to include that in their report. Like they were not set up to tell the world the truth.
There should be a button just down below here, and if it says subscribe, you're already subscribed. If it says subscribe but, that means you're not yet. And if you're not subscribed, please could you do us a favour and hit that button. It helps the show more than you know, and according to the algorithm, you're someone that watches our show, but you haven't yet hit that button. Thank you so much. In your view, is it possible that aliens aren't real? Is it possible?
I think
Well,
I
if it's
personally
using,
think that's
So you think it's impossible?
using the term alien, has a certain connotation about it. So you can certainly say, the evidence is absolutely clear that there is some form of life with advanced technology. If you want to say, well, what can I prove about it? Well, those are still unknown that we're trying to suss out.
I got access at a very high level of the military intelligence community, and there were a lot of people who talked to me off the record that wouldn't go on camera. There were a lot of people who couldn't tell me about classified information and want to know classified information, but they all made it very clear, not just on camera but off the record, that there is evidence at a classified level that is clear as day. Like some video taken when the bubble is turned off, that you can see a craft of non-human origin, clear as day. And there is evidence of the technology that's been recovered and of these bodies. And if you put yourself in my shoes, when you have so many senior people across the military, government intelligence community telling you this, it's really just impossible to ignore it. Especially when most of them aren't even friends. They're not ideologically aligned or politically aligned. They're all just different groups of people.
I'm less compelled by eyewitnesses. This is the problem because I'm such a big true crime fan. I hear about many cases where eyewitness said this, and then they find out the serial killer wasn't that person or that thing didn't happen. So, and I also just have my own experiences of
So in the film, Rubio and General Jim Clapper, two people who are completely ideologically and politically opposed to each other, made the same really intelligent point, and they both have knowledge at a classified level of the situation. They both said a problem have is that there's something in the human psyche that says, I cannot wrap my head around or prepare for things I haven't seen or experienced, right? And time again throughout history, that has proven to be like a human flaw, right? Rubio goes on to say that the greatest intelligence failures in U.S. history come from a lack of imagination. And he cites a few examples. He says, we never would have imagined the Japanese could figure out how to get torpedoes through the straits and hit us at Pearl Harbor until they did. He says, we never would have imagined terrorists would fly to the homeland, learn to fly commercial planes, and then use them in a terrorist attack until they did, right? He says some other examples too. But time and time again, not wrapping our head around a set of circumstances that, in using our imagination to think about what might happen or what might be happening, it's bit us in the ass. And he ends his line of thought by saying, lack of imagination leads to strategic surprise, like Pearl Harbor, like 9/11. And sometimes strategic surprise changes the course of history. And so, him and other people interviewed think it's really important to get ahead of this, as opposed to waiting for something to happen, as opposed to waiting for, to find out the hard way and trying to, craft this technology for us and use it as in an act of war, or non-human intelligent life does something on principle, and then all of a sudden the U.S. government's on its heels, or other governments on their heels, explaining to the public what they've known for a long time.
Is that an
There are people involved in gatekeeping this information that don't think it's public true. Hal recently told me that people in the latest program are pointing to the Asian clothing and saying, look, this film reveals a lot, and people aren't losing their shit, people aren't jumping out of windows, it's not causing chaos in society. The public can handle the base facts. Right?
What was the most compelling story around it that you had that convinced you?
It was really just a sheer number of very high level military government officials who were telling me in private settings to my face, that classified level, they know with absolute certainty this is real.
But if you had to pick one story,
I mean, it really wasn't one thing for me. It was the overall. It's like, for example, I interviewed Rubio and Senator Gillibrand on the same day. They both participated in the film and did lengthy interviews with me, and both looked me in the face and told me they thought this was the most important documentary that they've ever made. I thought this was really important to bring this information out in a thoughtful way to the public and make them aware of that. You can't on-hear stuff like that, and it makes me
what about you? What was the most persuasive thing you articulated most from maybe they have this feeling that there are non-human intelligent life amongst us?
Looking at the technology,
he used not any kind of guideline. I tried, the next day.
Oh, you spent the night?
Yeah, I spent the night and then...
Wait, you tried?
Of this little G God in the Bible. And so, really, it's all true. It's just a matter of who are these people. And then, once you understand that the 200 Watchers fell Mount Hermon, and that their offspring became the Nephilim. People get that mixed up, but we can talk about that. We can get all into that, and it's a very misunderstood subject, but it's absolutely true. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't find all the things that I find. I wouldn't be able to go out and find big giants, out in the world, and lots of them, not just one or two, and not just small ones, big giants, big ones. The very first giant I found, I swear, it's easily 80 to 100 feet tall. And so, and the coolest thing about that is I proved he was real by finding his spine and his pelvis. And, as you well know, there's no reason a statue would have a spine and a pelvis inside it. So that pretty much approved of that giant dude stealing the mountain with
Let me do one thing real quick. And I don't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good, man.
I wanna welcome my people. I know we 10 minutes behind. I have John Hoskins with me. I'm not gonna give a long intro, y'all, because I know y'all waiting for it, and he's already in a good mode where I don't want to stop him because I want him to just be comfortable. So I'm gonna do this intro, John, real quick. It's gonna be quick and pick up where you left off, man. And you just like we were talking on the thing, you know. And when you stop, I'll ask a question and all that. And by the way, everyone, I think this is John's first time, so keep that in mind. You know, we want to make it comfortable for him and everything. So, yeah, John, it's gonna be a very easy thing. You're gonna be able to share all of your ideas. I have your slides ready, and you're gonna be doing your thing, man. So just get ready to teach us. You do this all the time. Just, you know, relax. You're just in front of a crowd now. Ignore the chat room and just focus on, you know, your research and disseminating that. And you guys have an open mind. And if you have any good questions, send in a super chat or either at me in the chat room. I want to clap it up for John. He's the first mud fossil researcher that I've interviewed since Jerry DeCamp. Are you familiar with Jerry DeCamp, John?
I'm not. My name is Joe, J-O-E.
Okay.
But,
Joe Hoskins. I'm sorry.
What's he say?
Jerry DeCamp. He's big on the mud fossils and meltology as well.
Well, that's cool. I had not ran into that.
Can I ask you this then? Are you familiar with the meltology community, and do often the mud fossil community merge with the meltologists?
That was a meltologist.
Of course, I'm familiar with the mud fossil community, but the meltology, that's a little bit new to me. I get the premise, you know, and I've seen evidence of some stuff like that, but I don't know that it's absolutely everywhere, but, you know, everything has basis in something, and so it's worth looking at.
That's what's up. Hey, Joe, do you want to give a little brief intro? Tell the people a little bit about yourself, man, and what got started, and then you can talk to them about how the Bible inspired, because I know that when we deal with petrified giants, a lot of people have a biblical inspiration as well. If you're one of those, then by all means go into that as well. Take your time. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I could start there, because you have to kind of start there. But my name is Joe Hoskins. I'm a researcher explorer, and for probably the past 20 years, I've studied giants, mud fossil giants, and real giants in the pre-flood world. And so what I ended up finding, just kind of quite by accident, is, and it's been nearly 20 years ago, but I found this giant while I was working for a friend of mine against a mountainside down in East Tennessee. And this thing was enormous, and you could tell that it was a giant man standing against the mountainside. And I had just been studying about that, you know. I've been researching the Book of Enoch. And so I went and I took some pictures of this giant, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened there that was really weird, but I'm going to stay focused on the giant. But the thing was enormous, nearly 80 feet tall, between 80 and 100 feet, and I've got a picture in there somewhere of that thing. And again, the part that made that cool was when I looked on the internet, anybody can pull this place up. It's called the Devil's Looking Glass. The Devil's Looking Glass, and it's in Erwin, Tennessee. And it's an actual kind of a spot, and the local lore about that place is that if you go there at night, you can see 7 faces of the devil, you know, in the moonlight. Really, what they're seeing there are mud fossil giants. And so, well, what I did was happen to go there during the day and took some pictures during the day of that giant. And when I got there, some of it had crumbled away. And so what I caught was his spine and his pelvis, you know, which is really remarkable because that just proves that he was real. And of course, from then it was on, you know. From then on, I knew, well, man, these things are real, and if that giant is there, they could be all over the place, you know. But the whole point is, you got to be able to prove they're real, because, you know, anybody's just going to say, oh, that's just a mountain that looks like a man, you know.
Well, I'll present some of my things that make me skeptical, but first I want you to let it continue. I'm interested in your beginning journey. Go right ahead.
Well, and you know, and it's completely fair, because when you just on its face, I understand it, believe me, and I completely believe in giants because I found them. And man, when I tell you the real truth about it, it can be scary. But I understand why people have a hard time with it, because it seems just too fantastic. But when you get to thinking about that too long, you can move over to Baalbek, Lebanon, and ask yourself, well, who quarried those enormous stones that we can't quarry today? You know. So what we find is all over the world there are these giant places, which I know, and they're made, and we couldn't make them today just simply because of the scale. So slowly, as the fog lifts, you begin to realize that there's a huge race of giants. And this is the race that was judged by the flood. The reason they were judged is they started out and men tried to placate it. There was a time when the giants and regular sized men coexisted. Then the giants became too many and took over. And there was a time where men tried to feed them, where they tried to coexist. And well, then there just came a time where the giants began to eat the people. And there it was, you know. So,
what?
To be honest with you, it's very hard to find any real accounts of the giants in history that don't involve cannibalism. So that's something that's disturbing. This lets you know the nature of these beings. And so this is why it's not necessarily so much fun to jump into it, you know.
You gonna jump into it though, old white man.
Who the giants become when they're slain. You know, when you slay the giants, they're not eligible to go to heaven because they were not intended to be created. They were created, you know, in an act of defiance. And so, when a giant is slain, their spirit becomes what we know as a demon. This is why demons are so voracious. The giants are so used to demons. They're the first bullies, you know. You can imagine, if you're, you know, 20, 30, 50 feet tall, things are going your way. You know what I mean? If you're around regular sized people. So, this is what happens. So anyway, it's a fascinating story, and it's all real, and people just can't believe it. But I find examples of giants all over the world, and what it does is it just causes you to take pause and realize that there are parts of the Bible that when you're going to church, they just kind of skip over which talks about, you know, these fallen angels who descended and did this thing. And by the way, they all knew it was wrong. These angels, they call them the Watchers, and that's something you got to understand. God, you know, the Bible is absolutely true, but it's our story. No book could contain all of God's creation because there was, obviously, God has no beginning, so his creation, we can't say when it began. But certainly the Bible's our story. But these angels who chose to rebel, they descended on Mount Hermon, and what they did is they tried to do it all legal-wise. Because back in that day, your daughter, and I can give you this, and things are going to be wonderful. And so they actually did this legally. But what they presented to these fathers were things like advanced technology and things like this that were not intended for mankind. So they're making all kinds of rules here to get what they want, which are these women. And then once they consummate that, and fallen angels can appear as humans, and people wonder how that works. So they mated these women, and their offspring became the Nephilim, who are the giants. One of the things could be that they were giants. And they're supernatural.
Well, there may be many different interpretations on what giants were, who they were, and I hear your interpretation. It's an interesting. One thing is for sure, the petrified giant discussion is different than one's interpretation of how the existence of giants may have been in the past, because I think giants existed myself, but I don't think that they could ever be the size of a continent or the size of, I think that's just kind of going way, but I do think that there's like huge doors like what we find in Tartaria and stuff that kind of suggests that yeah.
That's something that I have a hard time understanding too. But I'll put it to you this way. I found a mountaintop there, somewhere, one of those shots I sent you. And the more I looked at it, I realized it was a head of a titan. This thing.
Yo, dang.
They have this look. They can seem vaguely human, but this thing, you can tell it was some sort of other creature. Maybe
a man sitting on two other men's shoulders, leaning out like that.
Obviously a head. And when I measured that thing, it was over. I believe it was 3,700 meters. The head. So, when you think about that, 3,000 meters is an enormous head, And there it is, and this could be left over from earlier times, and there's a real good way I break it down. There's a good line to draw there. The flood, the pre-flood giants were larger than the post-flood giants. Because the atmosphere, obviously,
Fire.
different in the pre-flood world. There was more oxygen, way more oxygen in the pre-flood world. That's why dragonflies and flies.
So even if it's a kilo meat.
a deflection. It's a real effect, brother.
Well, it's for people who are ready to shoot your work down, you know, that don't believe in your work, and they want to, that all of a sudden everyone wants to diagnose.
Can I ask you a question real quick? It's not a diagnosis. It's a scientific explanation that's explained. Hold on 1 second. Our mind is complicated. I've seen faces in the clouds, but I don't think it's a cloudified giant. People see Jesus in Cheetos chips and they sell it on eBay. Just hear me out. What I just want to say one thing. I don't want to get off on a foot with this show that I'm trying to just shoot down your research, because I think.
Wait. Go back.
I've seen faces in the clouds.
Hold on. I gotta get the description.
Giants. Are you
believe in giants, because here's what I tell them. I say, you know, I don't know anywhere you can go that's more just rock solid than the Bible. And the Bible says point blank, and I'll give you the verses and I'll tell you what they say right now, that giants were real and they were big.
I hear you, but here's the thing. It don't say about petrified giants. See, here's the thing I want to point out. I want to distinguish giants from petrified giants, because I agree. I think there were huge humans at one point, but I don't think they were nowhere near the size of an island or a mountain.
Island boy.
In the case of petrified giants, are you familiar with something called the pareidolia effect?
Yes. Oh, believe me, sir, I know all about the pareidolia. And so, here's what I'll tell you about it. Can I say something about pareidolia?
Yeah, sure.
I find that people, this is a very common word that...
It's not a deflection, it's a real effect, by the way.
Well, it's for people who are ready to shoot your work down, you know, that don't believe in your work, and they want to, all of a sudden everyone wants to diagnose.
Can I ask you a question real quick? It's not a diagnosis, it's a scientific explanation that's explained. Hold on 1 second. Our mind is complicated. I've seen faces in the clouds, but I don't think it's a cloudified giant. People see Jesus in Cheetos chips and they sell it on eBay. Just hear me out. What I just want to say one thing. I don't want to get off on a foot with this show that I'm trying to just shoot down your research, because I think that what's going on, if people downplay the pareidolia effect, is we're downplaying a real scientific observation for something that we cannot prove. Because check it out, you got to ask yourself this. If all of these rocks are petrified giants, why are they made out of the local rock that's in the area? If there's a petrified giant, let's say near a volcano, it's made of basalt. If there's a petrified giant near a granite area, it turns into granite. So listen, all of these giants tend to be made out of the local stone where they at. If that was a petrification process where organic biological material is petrifying and turning to stone, each one all around the world would be the same stone. Now, in real science, if we want to be honest, we look at the facts and we deal with Occam's razor. What is more likely? Because if my mind can see a face in the clouds, it can see a face in a water splash. It can see a face in a mountain. It can see a face, and that's real. So I don't want you guys to have the ability to downplay something that I know is true about how my own mind works. I deal with symbolism. I see shapes and patterns in everything. And I have to I can't say, well, that used to be what it is because it's shaped like it. So we have to consider this, and we also have to consider the fact that it can be petrified, but if we're going to consider that, I think you guys got to present evidence, and you got to cross out any other explanations. And the pareidolia effect is another valid explanation to explain this. But
the pareidolia effect.
All the things you're saying are true. Pareidolia is a real thing. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying people can look at a cloud and go, man, that looks exactly like a puppy dog. Look at that, But you gotta, we've gotta just look at the facts here. And here's the trouble with saying.
Okay,
Here's
good,
the
sorry.
trouble with saying that, like, Joe, you're crazy, you have pareidolia, and this stuff is real.
No, it don't mean you're crazy. Pareidolia don't mean you're crazy.
Well, no, no, it's just not applicable here. And what I'm saying is, I can prove it. And when I get into that, they don't want to talk to me, you know, because I can take you to. What I'm saying is, I'll show you this slot in the picture, and I tell you, there's a petrified giant. His head is 5 feet wide. Now, doom for these non-believers is when I can take you by the hand and walk you up to it and put.
Can I ask you a question? Should it
You know
be?
what I mean?
Should it be? Do you believe it or not? It's your responsibility to prove it. Because listen,
Oh, absolutely.
hold on a second. Hold on. Let's so we can go. Hey, hold on a second, sir.
I have no problem with
Eating
that.
popcorn.
Sir, give me a favor. Let's have a dialogue because I'm really interested in learning more. But the thing is this: you're reacting almost like it's a religion with believers versus non-believers. The thing about this, I can prove the pareidolia effect. There are people selling Cheetos right now on eBay that shape exactly like.
Right.
Listen, this is not so. When it comes to you making a claim, you're now burdened to prove it, and you can't prove the. Listen, you can't prove the claim with the claim. The claim is this mountain is a gorilla. If I say prove that, take a piece of rock. Hold on, let me. Can you, is there a delay because I want you to hear what I'm saying, and so you don't yell over me because I'm about to ask a question real quick. I want clarity here. What I want to know is this: can you take the rock apart, do samples on the rock for biological information? Because if the rock is made out of granite or basalt, then it's going to be hard to convince people that that's just not a basalt rock and we're having a pareidolia effect. And this effect don't mean you're crazy. It's actually science. It teaches you how our mind works. And that's something we need to be learning about, you know, because it will explain the fact that what we're witnessing here is pareidolia effect, which is something to be proven, versus, because which one is more reasonable? That a gorilla turned into a basalt rock or a monkey turned into granite, or my mind see faces in the clouds. My mind, that's exactly how our mind works. So we got to cancel the pareidolia effect out, not downplay it. And I don't think you guys are canceling it out. You're avoiding it by saying you're just a non-believer.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you wholeheartedly I'm a non-believer. I mean, I'm not a non-believer in pareidolia, and I think you might be missing the point of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, it has no application here. And why is because I can take you there and put your hand on these giant faces. And I've got a real good picture of a giant's head I found. I found this area that was an ancient spring, and I found what they call a cyclopean wall, and this is stuff from pre-flood. So I knew this was an old site. So I'm marching around in there, and I find this giant head, and it's a petrified giant head, and of course the bottom jaw is like dislodged from the top of the head, which would be something that would happen. But right at the corner of the jaw, which is right where your jugular vein is, was dark red, you know, and this would be for the blood in the jugular vein of the giant.
Oops.
And I
Damn,
would just
all
go right there and get a real clean sample and prove the real. It's what Roger Spur did. I don't know if you want to work with
Toss that ass over.
Spur, but if you
let me speak about Roger Spur. I have heard about his work. I think that is not work. I'm going to just be honest, if you allow me to speak for just a second. I think that it is actually an embarrassment, if I be respectful, because instead of us learning how our minds work, for example, and I sent you a message, I want you to open your Facebook, because I want to share some images with you of my own for you to check out. Let me know if you got the latest one that I sent you. We
I
can
don't
go
know.
through. Open
What
up
the
the
shit?
conversation we had in Facebook, and I'm sending you some stuff on there now, so we can. So I think that instead of teaching our children how they mind work with the paradol
Well,
effect,
you know-
hold on. Yeah, I think we're
It's
missing
about to
that.
get heated.
And it's almost like a childlike fascination. Now, I agree with John, but to think that a person can support themselves the size of a continent walking around under their own weight and their skeletal structure, like, instead of just saying, you know what, that's a belief, it's an idea. I know there's a lot of loopholes in it, and the the pareidolia effect is more. It makes more sense to this. So if you got the images I just sent,
Well, man, it sounds to me like you want to make a show on the pareidolia thing.
Listen, sir.
If you want to make a show on pareidolia,
Sir, I'm being
so
respectful.
Go ahead and do that.
Sir,
If
this
you want to make a show about giants,
sir, I'm being
now,
respectful. I let you talk.
I'm the guy to talk to.
Sir,
I'm not
listen,
sure
listen
what's
to
going
me.
on, but I
Listen
don't
to
know.
me. Listen to me for a second. I'm being respectful, sir. This is why I brought you on. This is a skeptic's interview. That means I get to ask you questions that make me skeptical about
I've
believing
been
it.
listening for a while, and you won't let me respond. So.
Sir, I've let you talk for. You know what, sir? We don't have to continue this if you don't want, because I'm not gonna listen to you cry.
What? Yeah, it's funny.
Listen, sir.
I don't get it.
Sir, I'm being respectful.
I'm with
Sir,
you.
this
too,
wanna
man.
make a show about giants.
Some people look at this and say it's a giant deal that God frozen in time if it's find a rock, right? Because apparently.
Sir, I'm being respectful. I let you.
That's just funny, tell you.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I think we're missing that, and it's almost like a childlike fascination. Now, I agree with John, but to think that a person can support themselves the size of a continent walking around under their own weight and their skeletal structure, like, instead of just saying, you know what, that's a belief, it's an idea. I know there's a lot of loopholes in it, and the pareidolia effect is more. It makes more sense to this. So if you got the images I just sent, listen, sir.
If you want to make a show on
Sir, I'm being respectful. Sir, this
you want to make a show about
Sir, I'm being respectful. I let you talk. It's too much fossil giant, sir. Listen to me. Most people of fossil giant, the number one argument they bring up is the Mandela effect. I've watched news articles, I've watched Science Channel, and I don't like to agree with science. I can me not agree with them. Now, this is one of those things where I say, hey, it's just a fact that this is more likely to so about the pareidolia effect, you can actually have people see what y'all if someone you're reacting, no one is all of the questions aren't about the pareidolia. Well, I'm not gonna tell you nothing. I'm gonna just let you teach real
sharpened in the photo too.
shaped like a gorilla by scientists who is it that or the pareidolia effect? That's all I want to say.
I mean, I don't know what you talking about. This gorilla thing?
They call it the gorilla rock. It's on the beach. Drop it in the chat room, people. Where is the
So
gorilla
you
rock
check
at?
this picture and you know that it's not what you're telling me.
Yeah, I checked. I got some more
He
of
said
them
it
for
like
you
he
where I
didn't check
know
it
it's not
though.
AI too. Here is Gorilla Rock right here. It's at Sail. How you pronounce that? Or is that Ruby Beach? This one is fake though. Now here is the fake one that's going around. But here is the real Gorilla Rock at Ruby Beach.
No.
And tourists go here all the time to see this. But scientists say it's just the pareidolia effect. From a certain angle, it looks like a gorilla.
Let's see.
Open up another tab. I don't know if you can see my YouTube
I
channel.
got
but-
two pictures, one of the gorilla and one of the kid.
Well, look, if you can go and look up Gorilla Rock on Ruby Beach, and you can see it's a real object that tourists go to. It's a rock that's shaped like a gorilla. But the simple question is, do you think that? Because that's my problem with the community. It ain't consistent. Like some of y'all say, well, your claim is a real giant gorilla, but the world is not. And that's why I say, how do you distinguish what's a petrified ancient biological organism versus pareidolia effect? Because you would have to, in order to make a definitive claim and be honest with yourself.
Yeah, well, that's tough. Because, and so that can be a tough thing. They sort of look like saggy skin, like something died and laid there and petrified, you know. But it's important to realize that when they got petrified, it was a worldwide flood, and there was the common conditions. But to your point, I have found things that are made. So it just depends on the conditions and what the conditions in the area that they can look differently and can be made as different colors, depending on what was in the area that they populated. In other words, what was the sediment that invaded where the flesh used to be.
So there isn't a legitimate process called mud fossilization. It's a totally baloney. And I'm gonna tell you right now, things don't just get frozen in time while they're sleeping and standing up as if they don't even know what this actually is going on. If you look at the people in Pompeii, when it was frozen in time, they are horrified because they put their hands up, they feel like, oh, something is happening. These things seem to be like, hey, it had to be in a millisecond, and this just, for you to convince people like, it's amazing to me that this community is even a thing and it's this big. It only exists by downplaying the pareidolia effect, and people saying that's just belittling the research, and by putting the Bible in it, to me is blasphemy, because the Bible spoke about a giant that can be defeated with a little rock, and you're not gonna defeat no giant the size of a continent with a little rock. So I think we're exaggerating the Bible versus looking at Tartarian research that shows. Yeah, I think that if we look at the arches in Tartaria, it'll show us the actual size of the giants, because they actually built their own architecture. So I think that we don't have to exaggerate giants. We have proof of giants. We got big structures, big chairs, and all of that. But for us to say that there's something walking around the size of a continent, now it just starts to be childish, in my humble opinion, because I want to teach about giants, but this stuff is just, to me, is out of hand, because when someone show you that every giant is made out the exact same rock that's local to that land. You guys then try to create a bogus process to make it be like wherever the giant petrify at, it's gonna turn into that local rock. And there is no process that does that. It's what this shows is everything we're looking at is the local rock in that area is proof of the Pareidolia effect.
Here's the trouble with your argument. Roger's
You didn't let me finish it, but go ahead. You didn't let me finish it though, sir.
It was 100% human. And the hand was 3 feet wide. So when you go and get the DNA and you can prove it, and here's a shocker.
That's a lie right there.
Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to talk to it. You know what I mean? Because he's got the smoke and proof, man. And, you know, nobody wants to talk about that. And
We talking about it now. But you guys don't want to talk about the Pareidolia effect because I don't believe he got no DNA. I'm skeptical of that. No one just said, listen, hold up, sir. You gotta let me finish. Hold up, sir. Let me land. Oh my, wow. Sir, listen, sir.
He'll message you right back. You mention my name. Watch what
I'll do it, but let me get to my next interview question, and you can take your time with these two out, and you can go through them. Can you explain the process in detail how an organic giant with flesh and tissue is chilling, right? Playing a game of chess, and in one less than a millisecond, he turns into the same local rock that's in that area. Can you explain the mud fossilization process in detail of how it becomes from flesh and blood to a stone? And in detail, not just saying a flood happened or this happened, but the process, the chemistry and all of that down to the deep detail. Go ahead.
process is called nucleophilic substitution. And it's the process by which a creature can solidify into the sediment that it's surrounded with. In other words, as the creature solidifies, the liquid parts of its being are washed away and replaced with sediment-rich, nutrient-rich water and sediment, and it becomes to take the form of that form. It's really the same thing as fossilization, and it just doesn't take millions of years, and that's the part that people hate, is it doesn't take millions of years for it to form. It takes the right conditions. And so it's not really a mystery, and let me just say this about that. Before I got cut off a while back about the Bible, Amos 2:9, the Lord says, remember the Amorites, and he's talking to the Israelites. He says, remember the Amorites that I helped you defeat, tall as a cedar tree, mighty as the oak. The Lord describing the Amorites, tall as a cedar tree. Okay? Numbers 13:33, there we saw the sons of Anak, and we were as grasshoppers in their sight. And so what that tells you is the Israelites were the size of grasshoppers compared to the sons of Anak. There's another verse in the Bible that says, who can stand against the sons of Anak? Now, if you want to look that up, you can get to their father, whose name was Arba. These are enormous giants that are known to exist documented in the Bible. There now. There's something to put in the Bible, Smoke.
Okay, and I think that you can have giants that size and they still ain't the size of continents, because if you look at these arches in Tartaria that I'm sharing on my YouTube now, yes, these things are the size of trees. Hold on, someone is talking in your background. Do you have a woman near you? I just want to let you know so we can have the people have a great show. I hear something in your background. It's gonna mess our show up. I don't want to mute you while I'm talking though. But so check this out, right? I don't know if the Bible backs up Well, it is. There you go. There you go. That'll be good right there.
Well, that's cool, man. That's your opinion, and you're completely entitled to that, you know?
So, if you want another question, I would tell you to, the next one ain't a question. I want you to explain your enhancement process that you was telling me earlier. And now we're gonna display your photo. It is a mountain. You got like a black mountain with snow on it. You want to explain that first photo? But before you explain your first photo, Joe,
I see.
tell them your enhancement process that you was telling me about.
The enhancement process?
Yes, that you do when you outline what you seeing.
Well, yeah, sometimes I do that. It helps people to see the detail of the rock. In other words, well, all I'm doing is taking the color and adding it to the rock so that the details jump out. Because if you'll notice, mud fossil giants are all pretty much the color of whatever is around them. Would you agree to that? So,
I think that you shouldn't do nothing to it. Just let us see it the way that it's naturally shot.
Yeah, no, you can see them. But what, to your point, not everybody can see that. And so, that's
And
what people
I
do
don't
need
think
help.
you should draw it in as specific.
I don't need to mark my pictures up to sell them. They're pretty evident when you look at them. That, wow, that's a giant something there, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I do this to help people who are new to looking for mud fossil giants. And it's very helpful. I've gotten a lot of good comments about it.
So it's like mud fossil training wheels. To me, it's telling them what to see, right? Because what it's doing, it's promoting the paradola effect versus explaining how our mind works. I think that this community should be a community that's saying, listen, our human mind see faces in the cloud. Is the face I see in the cloud a giant that's up there? No. So I think we could do the same thing with stone. But I got your first photo up, Joe, if you want to talk to us about it. It's a black mountain with snow on it. You want to talk about
I
this
don't know.
one?
I don't see no picture. I don't know, man.
Well, this is I'm gonna let you know. Open up our messenger conversation on Facebook and go to the first photo you sent me from your files. You told me you sent me some photos.
That I can't see. I don't even remember what the first photo is.
You just stroll back up. It ain't a lot of
Okay,
messages.
yeah, I see these photos. Yeah, okay.
It start with the white, sort of black mountain covered in snow.
Yeah,
And we're gonna,
I see that. That's a cottonhead, man.
okay.
That's a pretty big giant. I mean, that's good size.
Okay.
I can't remember the measurement on that. I don't know if I measured that or not. But it's a nice shot, man. I like it.
You want to give us some more about this Titan head before we go to the next one?
It's just, you know, your eye pretty much knows what to see. Let me look at that one.
Yeah, we can take our time with them.
Yeah.
The people can see it too, so.
Well,
yeah.
And what you can see is the nose, and you can literally see the nostrils. You can see that the eyes are open. You can see the mouth. It's a right-facing profile of a head there at the top of the shot. And again, if you're not used to considering, hey, you know, could a person do that to you? If you're not that, you would never even see that mountain. You'd never even see that it's a head. You know, you say, "Oh, that's a mountain, and it can't be a head. It's just a mountain that looks like a head." Well, there are no mountains that look like heads by accident. There, I see. So,
You don't think mountains can look like heads by accident?
Hey,
not generally.
Let me say, it don't have to.
All the ones like this one that I look close at,
I got you.
that's a giant head. Now,
Yeah,
am I saying that every mountain in the world is a giant?
Right,
Absolutely not.
That's a
No,
honest man.
you know that.
But let me say this real briefly. When you say it don't look like a head by accident, well, you're canceling out the accident, but we're not canceling out paradola. Paradola ain't accident. So that's why I sent you the somebody believe me, that will be the equivalent of what you guys are doing with Stone, because you're not canceling out the pareidolia effect, and in scientific claims, you gotta cancel that out because that is a viable explanation. Hold on, I'm gonna land here. And you guys don't do that. You just downplay it or say it's an insult, or you trying to say I'm crazy or something.
Well, you gotta realize this. What I bring are thousands of shots like this that are real shots of incredible things. And you bring one term, pareidolia, to the table.
That explains all of these shots.
Let me finish. Now, and so what I'm doing is I'm taking my shots that are the truth, that are not AI shots, and I put them out there and I let the people decide on their own. A lot of these shots I've posted, and they are all very well received. I'll just tell you right now. So, and I don't care. I don't make money off of any shot that I take. No, I don't do that. I'm not in it for that. The shots that I take them so that people can see the truth about what's in our world.
But it don't show us nothing.
Stuff. You know
We're
what I mean?
talking about it now. I'm gonna tell you what it is. I believe when you bring this stuff up to people, instead of you guys dealing with the pareidolia effect, you run from it by saying people don't want to talk about mud fossils when you're actually don't want to talk about the most valid explanation. And if we're gonna hold on a second, though, sir. The thing is this: if you make a claim that what I'm looking at right now is a giant space that's made out of the same stone that's in the local area right now,
You don't know that.
I do know that. Check this out, because I'm gonna show you. I'm finna prove it right now. Look, I can. You gotta let me prove it. If I make a claim, I'm supposed to prove it, but you gotta allow me to prove it. Listen, well, let me prove my claim. In order for me to prove my claim, you gotta be quiet. I made a claim, and you're saying prove it, Sanchez. Okay, now I got a burden. I got a burden on my hand now. You're right. You're being fair. You're saying, Sanchez, you're saying that now. Prove it. Okay, let me prove it right now. That's all I'm asking. If you look at the collage I'm showing right now, every last one of these is said to be a giant face. But if y'all look at this collage, every last one of these is a different rock that is equivalent to the local place that they're in. For example, look at where my mouse corner is at right now. This is in the desert, and you can see that these rocks look like red Grand Canyon looking rocks. And if you look at this one, these are little grayish little rocks. If you look at all of these places where they saying that these are giant faces, they got to tell us where is this location. Give us some other rock formations surrounding it so we can see that these ain't the same ones. Don't hide it now. So when each picture you show, I want to know that so we can look up that area, and I'm going to go on ChatGPT. I'm going to say, what is the local rock in the area where your giant face at? And if we use math, it is more mathematically logical that what we're experiencing is the pareidolia effect. Okay, you keep cutting me off. Go ahead. Let me answer your question. What it'll prove, you won't let me answer you. And guess what? If you let me land my claim, sir, respectfully, I'll be quick. And I'll tell you this. If we can go up to one of these spaces right now and extract human DNA from it, now you're going to start convincing me. Now listen, before you cut in. When you say somebody did it, that's not me having, like, that mean I gotta believe that someone else did it. So the people that saying, well, hold on, sir. You gotta let, I'm about to be done. You're making me take longer. I want to stop talking so I can give you the mic.
I'll be quiet and you can talk.
I'm trying to land. So here's the, you're being kind of rude, sir. I'm trying to give you the floor. All right, I'm just asking you a question. You don't have to get uptight. That's the problem. Now, the thing is this right here. I don't have to prove it. I didn't make the claim that this is a central crime. Someone in your background is talking, sir, and it's making it. It's not me do it so no one would be skeptic in the first place. It's lazy. But then you guys will say, well, I'm doing all the research and you're just saying pareidolia. Researching the pareidolia effect is work. But just looking at some and saying what I see is childish games. That's not work or research. If you can't explain what your claim is based on what you're saying, and you react like what you're doing now, it's a childish belief community.
I don't know what you're talking about. I react like I'm doing now. I don't know what I'm doing. Making you mad, dude. I'm just telling you.
No, I'm not mad.
If you want to hear the truth, you don't have to.
Listen.
I don't care if everybody believes every shot I have. What I care about is when I put it out there, I'm telling the truth. That's all I care about.
I want you to get DNA.
Everybody believes me.
DNA.
That's it, dude.
Sir, I'm just telling you, if you take pictures of something, then go up to it, snap a piece of it off, and we'll do the DNA together. So here's my offer
Snap
to you.
it up.
The sites that you go to, take a sample of them, give them to me, mail them to me. I will have the DNA test done for you. I will pay for it. I promise you. Send them to me because I want to do real, honest research and not just make claims and then ridicule people who don't believe it. So will you send me the samples of these rocks so I can get them tested for human DNA? Because I'm making a promise on a live that I will do it. I will pay for it.
If you'll pay for it, yeah, I can get you that. I mean, it depends on me getting to one of my spots, but you know, it's a possibility.
That's what I'm talking about.
The thing I would have to make sure is I get it collected without any contamination.
There you go.
Be sure we get that done correct. But yeah, it's doable for
Yeah, I will have to make sure you don't just put some of your DNA in it now.
Well, right, I'll give you a sample of it. Yeah, that's exactly right, sir. Well, that would show up. You should be able to find that out easily. Like, oh, this is you, Joe. So,
well, yeah, we would probably have to know that.
Stuff like that. You get found out, and I don't speak about anything I don't have any reason to. So, everything I show is real, and it's like, it's amazing, you know. If I got into showing you the giant cities and the pyramids and stuff, you would.
That'll be for the next show.
And all these locations,
that'll be the next.
So I'm not, I'm sitting on a big pile of good stuff. I'm just waiting on the right people.
That'll be the next show. But now I want to talk about some of the joints you sent me. So let's go to the next one. And it's a little gray stone surrounded by like some shrubbery of course. It's right after the white mountain face. It's right after the Titan face. You want to talk to us about that? Hey Joe, man, you doing a good job for your first interview. My people will tell me that I'm a jerk and I'm not easy when it comes to my skepticism. I'm gonna be tough with my questions and all of that, but I'm gonna be respectful. You're doing a good job, Joe. Trust me, these gonna get better and better because we're gonna learn each other energy and it's gonna get
fantastic claims require fantastic evidence. I'm fully aware of that. So it's totally okay to be skeptical. I don't hate skeptics at all. I'm used to it. I see it all the time. very nice. And that salmon, and this comes from Google Earth, believe it or not. And I took it from the Street View. You can go, you can find this yourself. You can go to Pilot Mountain and on Google Earth, and then get Street View because they'll light up blue. And you can push down there, and it's just like you're walking on a trail around Pilot Mountain. This is one of the hills that I saw, and I took a screenshot of it. But it's very nice and an excellent example of a this is kind of a 3-foot old. And you can see the heaters to the right, and you can see the eye socket, and you can see that the head is elongated at the top. Very nice.
You want to go to the next one? I think, let me see. I like the way it's going now. See, I told you it's going to start to flow good. Joe got a lot of his own pictures, guys, because in the Mud Foster community, what I like, Joe was saying, hey, some of that stuff is AI. The fact that you said that, and that showed honesty, so I wanted to let them know that, yeah, Joe ain't one of those ones that's selling you AI stuff. I can vouch for that.
No. All my shops are real, and you can totally check them. Anybody can totally well in my shop. Check them any way you want. I took them off of the, off of Google Earth and just snapped them. This next shot, there you can see I put a red line around the gun. Now this gun, see that one with the orange tree?
Yeah, you got the red orange trees around it with the green.
Now that is the first gun that I found, and you can see how tall he is.
Now, he got eyes and a mouth right here where at the top I see a shoulder line going around. Okay,
You can enlarge that a bit. It's awesome, and there are, you can see his nose and his mouth and his eye sockets, his arms down his side. The mouth, crown, helmet. The helmet is a thing. And you can see other guns. This is a place called the Devil's Looking Glass. And anybody, you can go pull this up and you can probably find the image of this gun. I believe that's where I got this image, because the other images I had, was where I was there in person, and I got a close-up image of his spine and shoulder, which is awesome, because that proves he's a real gun, So, but this is an awesome gun. This is my first giant find, and this, very near 20 years ago, I would say, 18 years, 15 years. Very nice stuff. And what there is, there's a legend about this place, and it's called the Looking Glass, and they say if you go there by moonlight, you can see 7 faces of the devil. And so, but really what they're saying, and I think the faces, and what they're saying is Mudbox's gun in this mountainside here, piled up, looks like to me. There's some awesome faces though in that shot right there that are incredible. Very nice. Let's see, the next shot, the next shot is behind himself.
Okay, you going to the next
I thought I heard you out there.
Yeah, the airbag's just busted.
The what?
The airbag's just busted.
What is the airbags just busted? On the car?
Yeah.
Our car?
Yes.
Which
I was
airbags?
turning in to the back alley, and they both. It's still drivable.
This picture is not a great picture.
Hold on.
It was,
There's no damage. That's what I don't understand.